welcome and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to me explaining the entire Twilight Saga slash universe slash whatever y'all want to call it. Part 2. Obviously, we are discussing New Moon today. I'm gonna be so upfront and so transparent with y'all. This is not my favorite book. It really is not, but the amount of research, Reddit, rabbit holes, lexicon sites, Stephanie Meyer interviews, archives that I went through for this one honestly made it a better experience for me. So hopefully it'll do the same for y'all. So let's get into it and see if we can also change y'all's opinion. If y'all enjoy this video, please make sure to hit the like button. And if you want to see more content from me, make sure that you're subscribed. And also, before the video begins, let me know down below where New Moon falls in your ranking. Like, is it your favorite in the series, or are you like me where it was like your least favorite, could skip if you wanted to? Before we hop into the actual book itself, we need to discuss something that I didn't know until I was researching the last video. New Moon and Eclipse were originally not supposed to happen. Meyer believed that Twilight was meant to be a standalone with maybe an extended epilogue novella of sorts called Forever Dawn, which eventually did turn into a full-length book, but she did not want any more of Bella's high school experience. She thought that Bella and Edward's high school story was over and done with. And Forever Dawn, let me just tell you, was not young adult in any way, shape, or form. And when she brought up this idea to her publishers were like, let's hold on a second, because I think we are missing a big chunk of the story. I think that we need to keep it young adult. I think that we need to hone in a bit more into their high school experience. And also, this Jacob kid that you wrote about in the first book, I like him. In the editor's exact words, she said, "I love this kid. Can't we get more of him?" And since this conversation happened while Stephanie was editing Twilight, she was able to go back through and add a little bit more sprinkling of Jacob and Billy. But originally, Jacob's only role in the series was for Bella, just to find out what the Cullen family was. Like, he was literally just a plot device for Bella to learn the truth. And I find that so interesting that if we went with Stephanie's original plotline for the series, there was no Team Edward, Team Jacob. It was always Edward and Bella. But with all of this in mind, a lot of fans did not like New Moon because of the lack of Edward Cullen. And so on Stephanie's website, she specifically writes, I need fans to reread this book. I need everyone to read this book twice. First time that everybody reads this book, they skim, they skip, they read ahead until Edward appears. And they miss, in her words, the wondrousness of Jacob Black. But if you reread it, you take in the book a little bit more, and you see that he is potentially an amazing character. I say potentially because I'm not a Jacob stan. I'm not. But I'm also a commentator, so I will be unbiased. I will bring up Forever Dawn once again when we get to Breaking Dawn, because it was essentially a loose outline for what we now know as Breaking Dawn. And a copy of it is in the Library of Congress, so I do think you can go read it. But someone on Reddit actually went to the Library of Congress, they read Forever Dawn, and they shared every little detail that they could possibly remember, which means when we get to Breaking Dawn, I will go through everything in Forever Dawn that I have learned. So stay tuned for that. One final note. I know each and every one of y'all are like, girl, get to the book. I promise, I'm almost there. But one final note. Stephanie specifically made sure that the fans knew, since she was told to write New Moon and was to add in more Jacobness, she wanted everyone to know, like, this was not her doing for Edward. Edward was going to do what Edward thought was best and what Edward wanted to do, not what Stephanie wanted him to do. What's best for him. No spoilers, of course. But if you've read the book or seen the movie, you know what I'm alluding to is the plot of New Moon. And once Stephanie understood what Edward would do in this position, she wanted New Moon to answer the question, what if true love left you? Okay, now let's get into the actual story. Both the book and the movie start off with a quote from Romeo and Juliet. And guys, I'm gonna do a little dramatic reading as if I were William Shakespeare himself for y'all. These violent delights have violent ends, and in their triumph die like fire and powder, which, as they kiss, consume. Just like in Twilight, we do have a little scene before the book officially begins, and this scene will come up at the end of the book, so make a little mental note, put a pin in the scene, because we will go more in depth in it later. But this book starts off with Bella running her hiney off. She is sprinting for dear life and she's running as fast as she possibly can. But she's not running for her life. She's not running because something is after her. She is running to save something so much more important and special than her own life. Alice told Bella that there was a huge chance that neither of them were making it through the day alive. And maybe if Alice wasn't trapped by sunlight and she was actually able to help, everything would have turned out differently. Bella didn't care that there were enemies surrounding them because if she failed, she wanted the enemies there waiting for her because she would lose any will to live. Now let's go into chapter 1. Y'all will see this scene finish out later. Chapter 1 starts off with a dream, and Bella is standing in a field and she sees her grandma Marie, who passed away about 6 years prior to this dream. As soon as Bella is about to ask her grandma Marie a question, she hears someone call out her name, and obviously it was Edward. Now, where Bella is in her dream right now is bright and sunny. And Edward is just making his way through the tree line, almost into direct sunlight. And Bella's like, wait, stop it. My grandma doesn't know about you. Stop moving. And Edward's just ignoring her as if he can't hear her. And Edward's just making his way to Marie as if she already knows he's a vampire, slash as if it weren't even sunny outside. And Bella looks back at her grandma and is like, I can explain. But before she could even really get that sentence out, she notices that there is a huge frame surrounding Marie. Bella lifts one of her arms, and when she does that, her grandma does the exact thing back to her, and she realizes, no, this is not good old Grandma Marie. This is Bella. This is her future self next to 17-year-old Edward, who would stay 17 forever. Final thing in this dream is Edward is standing by future Bella and also present Bella, because again, it is a mirror, and he tells her happy birthday. And she is immediately waking up startled from this dream, and it is in fact her 18th birthday. Bella tries to shake this dream off, but she literally can't, because today is a constant reminder of it because it is her birthday. She goes to school, and waiting for her outside of his shiny silver Volvo is Mr. Edward Cullen and also Alice. And Bella sees Alice holding a very tiny wrapped box. And Bella immediately is like, oh, I don't want that. I told you no gifts. No. Alice ignores her and just screams, happy birthday! To which Bella is like, shh, not a big deal. Shh. And Alice ignores her and just continues going, did you like the scrapbook that Renee got you? Or the camera that Charlie got you? And Bella just nods like, yeah. When in reality, this was a big spoiler alert for her because Bella had not unwrapped either of these presents. Alice just knew what they were going to get her because Alice has her visions. She saw them make that decision to buy her these gifts. And so Alice shared with the class. Little bit of a spoiler alert, ma'am. Little bit of a spoiler alert. And Alice can visibly see that Bella is already over today. And so Alice tells her, aren't women not supposed to be upset over their birthdays until they're 29? Bella simply responds with, 18 is older than Edward. All right, we have already come to a difference between the book and the movie. I didn't mention this earlier, but the movie starts off completely different from the book because we do get the scene with Bella running for her life to try and save something, but the way that the movie presents that is that it's a continuation of the dream with her grandma in the field, where in reality that's just a little sneak peek. The big change that we have is in the movies, Edward and Alice are not the only two waiting for her in the parking lot. Jacob is there. And he hands her a birthday present that she is ecstatic to get, and it's a dream catcher. And Edward's like, how come he can get you a birthday present and I can't? That does not happen in the books at all. And in fact, Jacob and Bella have not seen or spoken to each other since May, aka when he crashed their prom, and they will not talk to each other in the book until January. So from May to January, they've had no contact. Obviously, that was to sprinkle in some angst for all the Team Jacob girlies. No, that's not how it went in the book. In the book, they literally had no contact for a while, 9 months, honestly. And while we're talking timelines, you might be asking yourself, well, how long have Bella and Edward been dating? Thank you for asking. I'll answer it right now. They've been together 6 months. It seems like a heck of a lot more time than that because of, the near-death experiences that she's had, but no, it's only been 6 months. And tonight, the Cullens are actually throwing Bella a birthday party. And when I say the Cullens, I just honestly mean Alice. The Cullens will be there, and they have bought presents, and they're gonna be celebrating, but really the party planning is from Alice and Alice only. Ooh, Bella does not want to go to this party at all. She is constantly trying to make up some excuses. Bella's like, I actually can't come over tonight. I have a shift after work. She is working at the Newton Outdoor Store, which is owned by Mike's parents. That doesn't happen in the movies. I don't think she has a job in the movies. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but I don't think she has a job. Alice literally looks at her, she's like, oh, no. I actually got your shift changed because it's your birthday. Miss Newton says happy birthday, by the way. Bella's like, okay, perfect. Well, actually, I need to watch the Romeo and Juliet movie before class tomorrow, so I can't come. I have to watch that movie. I'm so sorry. And Alice says, it's a movie, you can't watch it later. And Bella is like, no, I really can't. I need to watch it for class. Alice tries to argue again, and Edward's like, it is Bella's birthday. If Bella wants to watch a movie, let her watch a movie. And Bella's over here smiling like, thank you. And then Edward continues on saying, I can just bring Bella by our house after the movie at like 7. So as soon as we finish that movie, we will be over there to celebrate Bella's birthday. And Bella is back to being grumpy because there is no way she's getting out of this party. It is now time for class. We learn that Bella and Edward have every single class together because Edward sweet-talked all the secretaries into getting his way. We kind of saw this in the first book, but he hardcore did it in this one so they'd have the same schedule. Bella was not paying attention in class today at all. She was zoning out, frustrated over having to have a party, frustrated that it was her birthday, frustrated that she was getting older and Edward was not. And she was also really frustrated that people keep getting her gifts. She specifically told everyone, do not get me anything. And she feels this way because she knows that her parents, Renee and Charlie, really don't have the funds to get her anything that special, and she doesn't want anyone to feel bad over this scenario. Here's where we get a little bit of Renee lore, shall we? Renee used to be a kindergarten teacher. She's not anymore. I think she just kind of has hobbies now, if we're being completely honest. But in the original version of Twilight, before it went through the editing process, Phil, who is now a minor league baseball player, in that original version, he was not a sporty guy. He was, in fact, the principal of the school in Arizona, and they changed that. And I just want to say, the reason that Bella knows that the Cullens would spend so much money on her if she let them is because Edward keeps offering like, your truck is really old, let me buy you a new car, a brand new one, you can have a Volvo too. Or, why are you working so much at Mike Newton's parents' store? I know it's for your college fund, but let me just pay for your college tuition. Let me just do that. I don't mind, I have the money, let's do it. So it's big, extravagant things like that is what they would give in forms of a gift. That is what they would gift her. So I do get where she's coming from. I do, because that's a lot. Bella made it through her first few classes. It's now time for lunch. At lunch, the table is Edward, Bella, Alice, and all of her friends over here. So Jessica, Mike, Eric, Angela, Tyler, who is no longer pictured because he doesn't have a big role, Lauren, Angela's boyfriend, who I believe is named Ben, and then someone named Connor. Oh, that's it? Like, where are the rest of the Cullens? Great question. The previous year, Rosalie, Emmett, and Jasper were all seniors. So since we're now in a new school year, they would have graduated by this point in time. School day's over. Alice takes Bella's car so that Bella can ride with Edward, basically so that Bella doesn't try to get out of this party tonight. And if y'all were wondering if Bella ever calmed down during the course of their 6-month relationship whenever Edward would try to kiss her, the answer is no. She is still losing her mind to where he has to push her back and be like, okay, we're done with that. We're done with that for now. And she will ask him, she's like, do you think I will ever get used to this or be a normal person when we do this? And he responds with, I hope not. They do end up watching the Romeo and Juliet movie. They watch it on her couch in her living room and they're cuddling a little bit. This is another difference from the movie because in the movie they're watching it in class, and this intense conversation that you're about to have, they have in class where anyone and everyone could overhear them if they're eavesdropping. But here's the intense conversation. When they get to the end of the movie, Bella is crying and Edward says, I do envy him. He envies the action that Romeo does at the very end because it's not that easy for vampires. As we learned from before with James, they have to be torn limb from limb and then set on fire. So it's not easy to destroy oneself as a vampire. And my oh my, that was such a dark segue and a dark topic to talk about on this girl's birthday. But we're in too deep, so we're going to continue on with the conversation. Edward talks about how last spring he thought about how he would do it. If James had won, he was trying to weigh his options on how he would be able to destroy himself because he knew he could not carry on in this life without Bella. And in his words, he needed a contingency plan. And his contingency plan relied on the Volturi. The Volturi is a very, very old, very, very powerful family of vampires. Basically think the royal family for the vampire universe. And as we talked about in the first video, Carlisle went to live with them for a little bit after he first transformed. We learned that you do not want to mess, disturb, or honestly even talk to the Volturi unless you want to be destroyed. Please keep that in mind and make a mental note of that. Thank you. Bella snaps at him when she learns of this contingency plan, being like, don't you ever think like that? Why on earth would you think like that? No. don't do that. Get that thought out of your mind. Edward is literally like, calm down. It won't happen. I will never put you in danger ever again. And then he looks at her and he's like, also, what would you do if the roles were reversed? And Bella says, oh, if something were to happen to you, you would want me to take extreme measures. To which Edward says, I see your point. Yep, I see your point. Okay. And as I said, they were cuddling on the couch. And so all of a sudden, Edward just sits up very straight, very prim, very proper, because he hears Charlie's car pull into the driveway. And Edward's gonna try and be on his best behavior in front of Charlie because of Charlie. Right there. Really don't like Edward. And who can blame him? Truly, who can blame him? His daughter almost left him because they had a first date that went horrible. She left in the middle of the night. And then not only that, when he does figure out what happened to Bella and he does find Bella, he gets a phone call that she's in the hospital because she fell down 2 flights of stairs and through a window to talk to Edward. Like, if I were a parent, I would be like, oh, not this boy. So I do see his point. Anywho, Charlie does walk in, he's carrying a pizza, and he's like, Bella, I bought pizza, this way you don't have to cook, it's your birthday, happy birthday! And Edward's like, actually, sir, do you mind if I steal Bella away tonight? My parents threw her this big birthday party, they want to celebrate with her. And Bella's thinking, they'll be like, oh my gosh, Dad, please, listen to what I am telepathically sending you. Do not let me go to this party. No, make up an excuse now. Do your thing, Charlie. He does not pass that vibe check. He does not understand. And so he's like, yeah, that's totally fine with me. There's actually a game I wanted to watch tonight. Have a good time, Bella. And then he pauses and says, oh, say hi to Alice for me. I haven't seen her in a while. And Bella's like, it's been 3 days, Dad. And Charlie responds with, yeah, but I just love her. She's great. Edward and Bella leave for the Cullen house, and Edward tells Bella, can you please just try and be excited for today? My family has not been able to celebrate a birthday since Emmett's in 1935. So they're pumped. They are so excited that Rosalie and Emmett, who have been in Africa, have traveled back home specifically for this party. Even though Rosalie is not the biggest fan of Bella, Emmett is so excited. He is so excited, and he made sure that they came home. We also learn that Bella feels so guilty for being a part of their lives because she knows, or at least she believes, that she is the reason that Emmett and Rosalie can no longer stay at home and be with their family because Rosalie doesn't like her. So she feels guilty for driving them away from their family. Edward definitely doesn't know what Bella is thinking, but he can tell that he's thinking of something that's kind of upsetting her a little bit. And so he changes the subject. He's like, will you please let me buy you a new truck? Like, please. This truck is so old. I would like to get you something a little safer, a little newer. Bella looks at him and she's like, you know what I want. And if you won't give it to me, I will ask Alice. Edward growls. Yes, I said growls because the book says that. I don't know what noise comes out of this man, but it's a growl. And he says, this is not going to be your last birthday, so don't even think about it. It's not going to be your last birthday, so stop it. Guys, do you think we should go to a party? I think we should go to a party, so let's have some fun at the Cullen house. There is a pink birthday cake, glass plates, and a pile, and yes, a pile of silver wrapped gifts. Carlisle and Esme immediately apologize to Bella and say, I am so sorry, this is a lot, but we really could not rein Alice in. Rosalie didn't even smile at Bella, but Emmett is so happy that she's here. And he tells her, stay put, I will be right back. And then he runs off to go do something. Jasper's also at this party. He is present, but he's standing a little further back from her, and Edward is really just staring him down, like staring into his soul at this moment in time. And this is kind of insinuating that Jasper hasn't really gotten over his aversion to Bella even after being cooped up with her in Phoenix for so long, because they hadn't been around each other in a hot second, which means her smell is still a little bit of an issue for him. And so his control is there, but not fully there, as we will see soon. They hand Bella the first present and she shakes it a little bit because it feels so light, and she's like, there's nothing in here. It's empty because Emmett is currently hooking up a new stereo system for her truck. And Rosalie is smiling during this moment as well. Whew. Everyone. buckle up, get ready, because ish is about to go down. The next present, it is from Alice, and it is wrapped nice and tight. Bella is opening in. Oh, what do you know? She has a paper cut. Oh, everything went from 0 to 100 real quick because Edward throws Bella behind him and she goes flying across the room, shattering the cake, the presents, the flowers, the glass plates, the crystal bowls. And yes, she had a paper cut, a small cut, but now she shattered glass. So she's a little bit more injured, and there is more blood in a room full of vampires. Jasper slams into Edward, and he is snapping his teeth at Edward like a caged animal. Emmett has now joined in, trying to pull Jasper back, while Edward has Jasper by the front, pushing him this way. So we have a push and pull, trying to control Jasper, and it's still a struggle. And as I said, what was a small paper cut is no more. She is fully bleeding in a room full of 6 hungry vampires on an animal-only diet. The only calm one in this moment is Carlisle. And Carlisle's like, Emmett, Rose, take Jasper outside. And Edward looks horrified as he crouches next to Bella to see what has happened to her, because Edward sent her flying and injured her more. Esme is apologizing as she is following the others out because she also cannot take the smell. Carlisle had to tell Edward, like, you need to move, you need to let me by so that I can examine her because she's not okay, she's gonna need stitches. And he says this because Edward is fully blocking everyone from Bella's body right now, like fully protecting her. And Carlisle looks at her and is like, okay, you got 2 options here. We can either drive you to the hospital or I can fix you up here. Obviously, she says here. Edward scoops her up. His face is horrified and it's frozen in that state. He's carrying her over to the kitchen table, kind of like a zombie. And Alice stays by Bella's side as Edward is carrying her to the kitchen table. And Edward is standing over Bella once he sets her down, and he is not breathing at all. And Bella can see this and she's like, I'm okay. Why don't you go check on Jasper? You need a minute? Please go take your minute. And once he leaves, Alice is like, you know what? I actually think I'm going to go outside too. I'm going to do that as well. So unlike in the movie, Alice actually lasts longer than anyone else other than Carlisle. Carlisle tells Bella it has taken him years and years and years to be able to withstand the smell of blood, but now it really doesn't even faze him. Bella then tells him that he tries really hard to make up for something that's not even his fault. And he says, like everything in this life, I have to decide what I want to do with what I was given. And Carlisle explains to Bella that his father had such a harsh view on the world. And this was something he was questioning even before he transformed into a vampire. We do actually have a pretty decently sized chunk of this paragraph talking about faith and the discussion of Carlisle's faith and also Bella's background in this as well. And this is where he tells her, yes, this does sound foolish because we're doomed regardless, but I do hope that we will get some credit for at least trying. And Bella says that she doesn't think that he's foolish for thinking that, and Carlisle tells him that she is the first one to agree with him. Carlisle goes on saying Edward himself believes that they have lost their souls. And as soon as Carlisle says this, it clicks into place for Bella why Edward won't change her. Carlisle is still speaking and he goes, when I look at my son, emphasis on son because he does view him as his own child, I see his goodness, his brightness. And this only fuels my hope, so how could there not be more? On the other hand, Carlisle goes on to say, if we believed the way that Edward did, could you take away his soul? Bella argues and says, well, Edward's not the only one who can change me. Carlisle very solemnly says, that is the only part I can never be confident in. Did I make the right decision? I think I've done the best I could with what I was given, but was it right for me to doom others with the same life as me? And here is some more lore for y'all that is not in the movie that I find quite interesting. We learn that it was Edward's mom all the way back in 1918 that made up Carlisle's mind to turn Edward. Elizabeth Mason was married to Edward Sr. Edward Sr. was the first one in their family to pass during the Spanish influenza in Chicago, and Elizabeth was alert the entire time she was sick. Carlisle literally says that if she would have just stayed in bed, rested herself, her own mind, she probably could have survived. But instead, she was trying to nurse Edward. She was trying to make sure that Edward would live. And Edward looked just like her. He had her bright green eyes. And this is the first time we actually learned about Edward's human eye color. Throughout the books, it's been black as coal or this golden color. But when he was a human, his eyes were green. He had his mother's eyes. Elizabeth obviously was obsessed with her son's fate and his survival. And as I said, that really led to her decline. Carlisle confesses that he wholeheartedly believed that Edward would pass before Elizabeth. That is how much worse Edward's condition was than Elizabeth's. But when Elizabeth's downfall happened, it was sudden. Really no warning. And Carlisle had grown attached to this family. And so when Elizabeth was crashing, Carlisle noted that she didn't look scared. She didn't look weak. And she stared into Carlisle's eyes and said, "Save him." And Carlisle promised, as any doctor would promise, saying, "I will do the best that I can, ma'am. I'll try." And Elizabeth made one final demand before she passed, saying, "You must do everything in your power to save him. What others can't do, you must do. You must do that for my Edward." And this freaked Carlisle out, being like, does she know I'm a vampire? Does she just really put all the medical knowledge I know to the test to try and save her son? Or like, does she know I can turn him and he can live forever? Like, this freaked him out. But he really couldn't question it because Elizabeth passed within that hour. And he's been wrestling with the fact of, should I make a family? I don't really want to be alone anymore. And then he has this woman on her deathbed say, do everything in your power, what others can't do. So he's like, oh, this is my sign. I gotta do it. And so with Elizabeth's words looping through Carlisle's mind, he looked at Edward and there was just something good about him. Something good about his face. Something that he would want his own son to have if he were able to have a son. Carlisle admits that he acted on a whim with this decision, literally being led by Elizabeth Mason's final words. And since no one noticed Edward was still breathing, because the hospital was very crowded, it was very, very busy, there was an outbreak of the Spanish influenza, Carlisle took Edward to the morgue. He was like, this boy is dead. And later that night, Carlisle returned to the morgue with Edward, who was still alive, and he carried Edward across the rooftops all the way back to Carlisle's house, and he had Edward transform in his house, which is actually different from the movie, because I think in the movie he changes Edward like right then and there in the hospital. I have another commentator note because I told y'all I did a lot of research on these things, and I went down two different paths. There's a lexicon site for Twilight that has been around since these books first came out, and there are a lot of forums of people that believe that like Carlisle and Elizabeth Mason would have been a thing, and there are a lot of Reddit tales about it as well. Like apparently like that was a very big fan fiction combo, which I find very intriguing. And then also there's a lot of people speculating, did Elizabeth Mason actually know what Carlisle was, or did Carlisle read into this because he had been wrestling with this thought for so long? Some people are thinking maybe just like how Edward was really good at reading people and had really good intuition, maybe that was connected in his family line, and Elizabeth Mason was the same way. Like she wasn't able to read Carlisle's mind, but she paid close attention. She could just pick up on certain things on how he kind of composed himself. There are a lot of different theories surrounding Elizabeth Mason. I personally believe that Carlisle had been by himself for so long that her saying these words, which I think any mother in her position would say, he interpreted it the way that he wanted to hear it, to save Edward, to have Edward be with him. That's what I believe, but I do find the theory of her having the intuition very interesting. Back in a New Moon, as we know, Carlisle was telling his backstory. Edward walks in at the tail end of this conversation. Edward tells Carlisle that he is going to take Bella home and that Alice is going to go get her some clothes from her room. Edward then leaves the room to kind of wait for Bella a little bit, and she looks at Carlisle and she says, Edward is very upset right now. And Carlisle's like, yup, that's his worst fear come true. He never wants to put you in danger. This wasn't either of y'all's fault, but he is going to be very upset with himself for a while. And as they leave the room, Bella sees Esme with a big old bucket of bleach mopping up the blood stain to try and get rid of one, the stain of course, but two, just the smell. And she's like, oh, you don't have to do that, like I will help you. And Esme's like, no, don't even stress about it. It is a-okay, it's almost gone. Alice appears to give Bella some clothes, and Bella literally whispers to Alice, how bad is it right now? Alice says, I'm not sure yet. Jasper is very mad at himself because he feels so weak right now. Bella tells Alice, make sure to tell him that it's not his fault. Edward is standing at the front door just waiting for Bella. Like, he wants to get the heck out of Dodge. He is over today. Like, he's not a happy camper and he just wants to leave and get her home. In the car, he doesn't even look at Bella. He's not saying a word and he is driving extremely fast, even for him. And Bella's just thinking to herself, oh my God, what did I do? I didn't mean to bleed. Oh no, why won't he even look at me? And Bella's like, can you please say something? At least say you forgive me. Edward snaps and says, forgive you? You literally got a paper cut. If that happened to you anywhere else, the worst thing that could have happened is no one could find a band-aid. So don't try and take the blame for this because it'll only make me more disgusted at myself. I also just want to note that he brings up Mike in this conversation, which is a weird time to do so. But he says if she ended up like tripping on glass or something after the paper cut at anywhere else's house, like Mike could have brought her to the ER and sat with her the whole time, not bothered by the smell of blood. And Bella's like, why are you bringing Mike into this conversation? I don't want to be with Mike. I've never wanted to be with Mike. What is the point of that? Because he's a whole lot better for you than I am. And Bella responds with, excuse me? Do I even get a choice in the matter? Because personally, I would rather not be here than be with anyone else. When they pull up to her house, she's literally like, well, are you gonna stay the night for my birthday present? And Edward responds with, you can't have it both ways. You either want people to celebrate your birthday or not. You have to choose. And Bella responds with, well, I choose that we're celebrating my birthday, so I will see you upstairs in my room. She starts to grab her presents and Edward's like, no, you don't have to take those. I know you don't want anyone to spend money on you. You don't have to have them. And Bella just responds with, I'll live with it. He kind of rolls his eyes a little bit. He tells her he'll be in her room. He grabs all the presents and then he says, happy birthday. When Bella walks to her house, she does run into Charlie and he's like, how was it? And she's very over the top being like, it was such a good time. Oh, I'm so tired. See you in the morning. And while she's being over dramatic, like yawning, stretching, waving goodnight, Charlie sees her arm, which is freshly stitched up, and he's like, what the heck happened to you? And she lies saying, oh, I just tripped, no big deal. And then she sprints upstairs before you can even question anything else. Obviously, Edward is in her room, and so when she gets up there, she takes a little bit of a human minute, goes to the bathroom, changes into pajamas, does her nightly routine, goes back into her room, and she climbs into Edward's lap and she says, can I have my presents now? And he says, allow me. And he unwraps it so that she won't get another paper cut. Inside the box is a piece of paper, which we learn is a plane ticket to Jacksonville. And Bella responds with, holy cow, this is amazing. My mom is gonna lose her mind. You'll have to stay inside the whole time. I hope you don't mind, but I'm so excited. He's slightly smiling, saying, I can handle it. If I would have known you'd be so excited over this present, I would have had you open it in front of Esme and Carlisle. Edward then hands her another present, and this one is a CD. And Edward doesn't say anything, but he gets up and he puts the CD in her CD player and he hits play. And she starts to cry because he recorded himself playing the piano, playing the lullaby that he wrote for her, and he burned it on a CD so that she could have it. And that's just so sweet. Where was that in the movie? They're laying down for bed and Edward tells her that he's thinking about like what's right and what's wrong. And this is freaking Bella out. She's like, this does not seem like a good conversation. And so she changes it a little bit. She's like, I want one more thing for my birthday. Can you kiss me again? And as always, it's a lot. It's a lot. Except, and take note of this, it's not her that's making it a lot. It's him. And he is acting urgent during this kiss. And she asks a question that is just crazy for a young adult book, but nonetheless, it's in here, so I'm going to have to discuss it with you. She asks him, which one's more tempting, my blood or my body? And he just responds with, it's a tie. How about you go to sleep now? And right before she goes to sleep, she remembers why this urgent kiss from Edward felt so familiar. It felt like the kiss he gave her back in March when James was tracking them and they were all about to go their separate ways. When him, Carlisle, and Emmett were going to Vancouver, Rosalie and Esme were going west to distract Victoria, and Bella was going with Alice and Jasper to Arizona. It felt like that final kiss where he was a little stressed out and was having to say goodbye. And that was not a fun thought for her to end her birthday, mind you. They wake up the next morning, Edward leaves to go back home so he can change clothes before they go to school. Weird vibes. Weird, tense, odd vibes are happening right now and Bella can feel it. Alice isn't at lunch that day. She's actually with Jasper. Jasper's going to be gone for a little bit. And Edward explains that they're trying to convince Jasper to go to Denali, which is where another coven of vampires that are very similar to them live. And this makes Bella feel horrible because not only had she driven Rosalie and Emmett to Africa away from their family, she is now about to drive Alice and Jasper to Denali away from the Cullen coven. Literally splitting up this family even more. After this lunch discussion, they literally don't talk for the rest of the day. At all. To the point when they get into the parking lot, she's like, "You're still coming over, right?" And he responds with, "Well, if you want me to, yeah, I will be there." Like, she's very antsy and she just knows something is wrong. Side note, this is different than in the movie. In the movie, Edward does not go to school the day after the birthday party. He's actually in her room without her knowing, looking at a picture that she had in her scrapbook. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, has she used the scrapbook yet in New Moon in the book version? No, she hasn't. We're about to get to that point, but that is what movie Edward is doing currently. Whereas book Edward is in school. They're not talking, but he's at least near her. Back to our story. After school, Bella has to go to work. She is at the little outdoor store and she's hyperventilating at this moment in time. She believes that she has ruined everything for the Cullen family. She's like, they have to come back eventually, right? And then she's thinking to herself, maybe it would just be better if Edward and I left. This would just be better for everyone else. We could just pretend that we're going off to college together. It is September right now, but hopefully Edward can just wait until May and then him and I can just run off together. In the grand scheme of it, for vampires, it shouldn't be that long, right? Like he could definitely wait until May. Those are the thoughts going through her mind right now. She's talking to Mike and Mike's like, "Oh, how was your birthday?" And she's like, "I'm just happy it's over now." Mike looks at her like she's crazy because that is such a wild response from someone who just turned 18. But after work, she races home. And she goes inside and she sees that Edward is there on the couch in the living room with Charlie. And Edward is honed in on the TV. He's really not saying anything. Charlie's like, "We had some cold pizza if you're hungry." And Bella goes in the kitchen to go get herself some cold pizza. And she's just thinking, what is the worst that could happen? What is worst case scenario? And then she thinks, no, scratch that. What's the worst that I could live through? Never in a million years did the thing that's going to happen cross her mind. Bella knew that change was coming. She just believes she's going to be a part of it. And since she believes she's going to be a part of this change, she starts taking pictures. She's taking pictures of Charlie and Charlie's like, "What are you doing to me? Stop, no paparazzi." And she's like, "Well, this is just a sweet moment. I want a picture with you. Hey, Edward, can you take a picture of me and my dad?" And so Bella and Charlie are taking a picture together and then Charlie's like, "Okay, kids, y'all go sit on the couch. Let me take y'all's picture." And so Charlie takes a picture of Edward and Bella. And Bella makes sure to get these pictures developed so that she can put them in her scrapbook so that she will always have them, especially the one of her dad, because she believes that she's going to be leaving Charlie soon. Days have now passed. They have not talked. And I'm gonna be real transparent. They're not really living either right now. Like, they're just kind of floating through life and just watching everything pass them by for these couple of days. And eventually Edward asks Bella, "Can I come over?" I believe it's been 3 or 4 days since the party took place, by the way. When they get to Bella's house, he asks her to go on a walk with him and she knows immediately, like, oh, this is bad. This is bad. She leaves a note for Charlie and then Edward really doesn't say anything. He just kind of starts walking into the woods. And so Bella's like, "Okay, I'm coming." Bless her. And I just want to mention, because in the movie, you don't really see how close she is in proximity to her house. They don't get far into the woods. You can literally still see Charlie and Bella's house when Edward stops moving. Edward looks at her, he's like, "We're leaving. We cannot stay in Forks anymore." Carlisle has been pretending to be 33, which is 10 years older than what he actually is. People are gonna start asking questions soon. Because of the way Edward is saying this, something clicks in Bella's mind and she goes, when you mean we, you mean my family and I. Bella's like, okay, I'll come with you. And Edward responds with, no, that's not the right place for you. And Bella's like, anywhere you are is the right place for me. Edward basically showing no emotion is, I'm not good for you. My world is not good for you. Bella is basically sobbing, saying, what happened on my birthday was nothing. It was nothing. It was nothing. Edward says, yeah, because that's what's to be expected. It's why you don't work in my world. Bella screams, you promised me. You promised me back in Phoenix that you wouldn't leave. I said I would stay as long as it was for the best. And clearly it's not. Bella is like, no, this is about my soul. And you know what? If you want it, you can have it. I don't want it without you. I don't want you to come with me. You don't want me? No. As soon as Edward says this, Bella becomes numb. Edward keeps on talking. I don't know if Bella is processing anything he's saying, but he's still going, being like, of course, I'll always love you. But what happened the other night, it made me realize it needed to change. We needed a change. I'm not human, and I'm tired of pretending that I'm something that I'm not. And you know what? I've let this go on for too long. For that, I'm sorry. And you're not good for me, Bella. But I need you to promise me one thing. Promise me that you won't do anything reckless. He pauses. And then he specifies, when I'm asking you this, I'm thinking of Charlie, of course. Charlie needs you, so you need to take care of yourself for him. And I, in turn, will make you a promise. This is going to be the last time you ever see me. I will never bother you again. It will be as if I never existed. And don't worry, human time heals all wounds for your kind. Bella, feeling like she's been hit by a train at this point, is like, well, what about your memories? You're here forever. Edward says, well, I won't forget, but my kind is easily distracted. And then he says, well, that's everything, I guess. We won't bother you again. And when he says the word we, it clicks into place for Bella. It's not just Edward that she will never hear from again. It's all of them, including Alice. And she asks this, she's like, Alice too? And Edward responds with, well, she wanted to say goodbye, but I thought a clean break was for the better. Bella tries to reach for him and he literally locks her arms in place by her side so she can't get to him. And he says, take care of yourself. And with that, he's gone. Trace, no trail, no nothing. Gone. And Bella tries to follow him, but as I said, he left no trails. So she's just wandering through the woods, being like, Edward, don't leave, Edward. And there's no way for her to find this man. There's no way. No way. But she keeps on going, and eventually she trips over something. She falls, and she doesn't get back up. Not because she's injured or anything like that, but because she doesn't want to carry on and live a life without Edward. So she stays down and just curls up in a ball. If you're sitting there wondering and asking yourself, how on earth did this man get his whole family to agree to also leave Bella? Because think about it, Alice is literally her best friend. They are besties. How did he convince them? Let me tell you, because she actually answered a Q&A on the Twilight Lexicon site years and years ago, and she answered this very question. Stephanie said that when it comes to Bella, everything is Edward's decision. No one feels like they have a stance against him, especially Carlisle, because Carlisle is living with so much guilt over just turning Edward. So we really can't argue with any of Edward's motivations, because the one thing Carlisle values the most is the human soul. The rest of them weren't too excited to relocate. Edward tells them, I have relocated several times for all of y'all. And apparently he was looking real hard at Emmett and Jasper when he said this. And he was like, I've never asked you all to relocate once. And it was a little bit of a you owe me scenario. And then finally, the real kicker, and this is the one that I also used to ask myself all the time. They're best friends, Alice and Bella. Why would Alice leave? Alice apparently never saw a world where Edward didn't cave in. In every single future, she saw Edward eventually going back to Bella. So why argue with him now if eventually he will get back with her? Bella is still on the ground. It's starting to rain a little bit. She's not moving. She hears someone calling out her name, but she's not responding. No. Someone named Sam finds Bella and says, Charlie has been looking everywhere for you. He sent a group of us to try and find you, and he scoops her up to take her back to Charlie's house, where as soon as Charlie sees her, he drops everything, runs to Sam, and Sam's like, are you sure? Like, I can carry her in the house. He's like, no, 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 like, hand me my daughter. And Bella notes, like, she feels Charlie struggling to carry her all the way upstairs into bed, but Charlie's not letting her go or leaving her side. And Charlie brings a doctor upstairs. Please note that it's not Dr. Cullen, the main doctor in town. It's a different one. Brings this doctor upstairs and the doctor's like, are you hurt? Are you okay? And Bella says, no, I'm not hurt. Not like that. The doctor tells Charlie that there's nothing wrong with her. It's just exhaustion, so let her sleep. And when the doctor and Charlie leave her room, she hears Charlie ask him, is it true? Are they really gone? And then she hears them complain about their lack of warning. So yes, the Cullens have up and left Forks, Washington. After a while, she hears Charlie get a phone call about some fires out by the reservation. So Charlie calls his good friend, Billy, and Billy tells him, yeah, like there's just bonfires going on. We won't let it spread, no big deal. And Charlie's like, wow, like actually kind of impressed y'all are having some bonfires while it's raining, but have fun, keep an eye on it. If anything goes awry, let me know. The reason that there are so many bonfires going on is because they are all celebrating that the Cullens have left town. Charlie goes back into Bella's room and he asks her, did he leave you alone in the woods? The only reason I knew you were out there is because you left a note. The only reason I knew you were out there is because you left a note saying you were on a walk with Edward. And I called the hospital looking for Carlisle to see if he knew where the two of you went, and then I was told the Cullens left town? And the only thing Bella asks is, where did they go? Charlie responds with somewhere in LA. Apparently it was a really big salary increase. They're not coming back. Bella groans at this thought because she knows that this is a blatant lie that they are telling the town, but also that they are letting Bella know, like, you can't come find us. Obviously, we're not in bright and sunny LA. Bella is now in her room. She's alone and everything looks the exact same. And she thinks to herself, oh my gosh, even though he's gone, at least I can still listen to the lullaby he wrote me. I'm gonna go listen to it. And she goes, she hits play, and it's not the CD that was in her CD player earlier. It's actually a completely different one. And so she's searching and searching and she realizes, oh my God, he took it back. He took back the CD he made me. And then she runs to her scrapbook, flips through the pages until she finds the spot where she put the picture of her and Edward that Charlie took the other day. And wouldn't you know, he took the picture too. He did leave the page, so it still has that caption like, Bella and Edward on this day. Picture is gone. This boy literally took everything that could have been a reminder with him. Also, if you can see, Edward is now a little smaller. He's moved up. Jacob is now one of the main pictures on our board. My favorite decision that Stephanie Meyer or her publisher or her editor, I don't know who decided this, but oh, I love it. They used a page per month to show time flying by for Bella because she's in a catatonic state. And it is my favorite thing. So one page, October, November, December. And then I believe it's like waking up. And that's how you know we're back in January. In the movie, I do like how they showed this. They did the little, there's a possibility, as it's like panning towards the different seasons. I really like that, except they messed up the timeline a little bit. I don't know if anyone noticed this, but it shows that Bella really didn't start living her life again until February. And the only reason that you can tell it's now February in the movie is because she's sending emails to Alice. And in the book, she does not send emails to Alice, but in the movie, she does. I like the movie decision though, even though they messed up our timeline, because it does show like all the Cullens have completely cut Bella off. Back into the book timeline, it is January. And just for a little bit of perspective, we are not even at the 1 year mark of Bella and Edward meeting for the first time. Not dating, just meeting. I think we're like a week or two shy of that. In totality, they dated for 6 months. He's been gone for 4 months. And we are not even at the 1 year of them first meeting. Also, this is her senior year of high school and she's missed the whole half of it. It's a lot. It really is a lot when you think of it that way. Time is passing by for Bella, but it's uneven, it's dragging, but it's still passing by. And everyone else is just carrying on with their lives. Charlie finally announces to Bella, I'm sending you to Renee. You are going to Florida. You didn't do anything wrong, but that's the point, Bella. You're not living your life. You are a shell of a human being. He carries on saying, you're not the first person to go through this. I think you need some help. When your mother left me and took you, it was a really bad time for me, but I handled it and you're not handling it. And I think you need to see a professional. Commentator note. Normally I would agree that yes, she should probably see a professional. But what is she going to tell the professional? Like, genuinely, like, yes, my boyfriend was a vampire and I actually almost died because of my vampire boyfriend because another vampire was trying to chase me down, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna spend eternity with him because one day he will turn me into a vampire. But then out of the blue, you know, I had a paper cut and I started bleeding and his whole family started freaking out, and then, you know, he just left me. Him and his family just got up and they left me, and now I am not okay. What do we expect the therapist to do? Bella tells Charlie, I'm gonna hang out with people tonight. Don't worry, I'm gonna start living life again. Do not worry. Because in the back of her mind, she's like, I can't leave Forks. What if he happens to come back? I cannot leave the place where I met him. I don't want to lose everything that reminds me of him. And this is literally all she has left. Charlie says, I just want you to be happy. He pauses and then he goes, you know what? No, not even that. I just want you to not be miserable. Bella very firmly says, I'm not leaving. It's my last semester. Charlie shakes his head and he says, you and I both know why you're not leaving, and it's not healthy for you to stay here thinking he's coming back. It's been months with no contact. Nothing. Bella responds with, I'm not expecting anything from him. I will make plans with Jessica tonight. I'm not going to Florida. She is literally just going through school like a zombie. Eventually she sees Jessica and she's like, hey Jessica, do you want to have a girls' night? And Jessica responds with, okay, I guess. We can see a movie or something. Bella responds with a movie that has been out for months, but she hasn't been aware of that because she literally has not been living at all. Jessica responds with, my dad was telling me about a zombie movie. He said it was really scary. Do you want to see that? And Bella's like, yes. Zombie, scary, gore, no romance. Perfect. Let's do it. And now she has plans tonight, so let's go to the movies with them. Jessica asks her, well, why now? And Bella just responds with, I needed a change. Bella also tries to make some small talk, and so she's like, what's going on with you and Mike? And Jessica responds with, you see him more than I do. Oh, well, I don't really talk to him when I'm at work. We learned that Jessica and Mike have broken up. They haven't been together for a hot second, but she did go on a couple of dates with someone named Connor, and I think she went on one date with Eric. And Bella's like, you went with Eric? Why? And Jessica responds with, he asked me and I didn't know how to say no to him, so I had to go. And Bella's just thinking to herself, perfect, I can run with this. I can get her to just keep talking, and all I'll have to do is be like, oh my, what? No, that's crazy, without actually having to pay attention to her. The movie starts and Bella literally has a panic attack as soon as the main characters pop on the screen, because it's a happy couple just walking down the beach, and Bella's like, I thought there was no romance. I thought this was a zombie movie. And so she gets up and she goes to the concession stand, or at least by that area, and she waits an absurd amount of time until she's like, the couple must be off the screen now. And then she heads back in, and she does that more than once throughout the movie. And Jessica's like, where did you keep going? And Bella just responds with, oh, well, it was really scary. I needed a minute. They start making their way out of the theater. They're discussing what they want for dinner, and they see this group of 4 men ahead, and Jessica's kind of hustling to get by without having to look at them, speak to them, anything like that. And Bella's having some deja vu. She's like, what are the odds? I'm in Port Angeles. I'm with Jessica again. I see 4 men that remind me of the 4 men that I saw last year when Edward saved the day. Too much of a coincidence. And Bella literally starts to make her way over to them, and Jessica grabs her and she's like, what are you doing? We learn that the men are standing outside the bar, and so Jessica just thinks she's trying to go into the bar, not talk to the men. So she's like, you can't go in there, you're underage. And Bella looks at her and says, you know what, I'll catch up with you once you're done eating. And it wasn't Jessica that made her stop while she was making her way over there. It was a voice in her head saying, go back to Jessica. And that voice, ladies and gents, is Edward himself. Now in the movies, it is not just his voice, it's literally like an apparition of him. And I know why they did that. They did that because when you're watching a movie, it's more powerful to see something than just hear it. But she does not see him in the book at all. It's just his voice in her mind. Anywho, the voice in her mind just keeps repeating, you promised me, you promised me. And Bella now realizes there are 2 things that are potentially happening. 1, she's just pure crazy. She is cracked and she's crazy. Or 2, her subconscious was giving her what she actually wanted. And Jessica's in the street not knowing what to do, like, and Bella just casually makes her way back to her and is like, okay, let's go eat. Jessica snaps on her. Is like, what are you doing? I don't even know who you are anymore. Jessica also chooses to go to McDonald's for dinner because they can go through the drive-thru and they can just eat on their way home. Less time to spend with Bella. And so when they get to Bella's house, Jessica's like, bye, had a great time, bye. Very short, like get out of my car essentially. In the movie, I think Bella gets on a motorcycle with these men. I really do. I could be tripping, but I'm almost positive she hops on a bike with one of these guys, which is way worse. Like way worse. She's thinking whatever happened, whether it was the zombies, the hallucinations, the adrenaline, it had woken her up. And for once in months, she did not know what to expect from tomorrow. We also learned that every single night since Edward left, she has had the same nightmare. It's an endless maze of trees. She would try to run through, but she's a clumsy girl. She is a klutz, so she was failing. And no matter how far she ran, there was nothing for her. And this nightmare would cause her to wake up screaming every night. And she was just wishing that she could feel numb again. She's just driving around reflecting on what Edward said right before he left, as if I never existed. And she sees outside of this house 2 motorcycles. She stops her car, gets out, knocks on the door. She knows the people because it's a small town, and she's like, hey, are those for sale? I want them. I will buy them. And the guy's like, well, they literally don't work like at all. And she's like, that's fine. I know someone that works on bikes and I know someone that works on cars. The guy helps put the motorcycles in the truck. She calls Charlie at work, and also to call him, like she can't call a cell phone. She calls the sheriff's department. It's like, can I talk to Charlie, please? Which freaks him out. He thinks something is wrong. And she's like, nothing is wrong, but can you give me the directions to Jacob Black's house, please? I think I'm gonna hang out with him for a little bit. And he is ecstatic, and he's like, great idea. Here you go. Have a blast. Drive, Bella's just dreading seeing Billy because she doesn't want to see him being all smirky and smug, like, I told you so. But she sees Jacob first, who is so happy to see her because he hasn't seen her since last May at prom. That's how long it's been. And he has grown since the last time that she's seen him. In fact, he is now 6'5". He's huge. And he's 16 instead of 15 now. So he's 16, she's 18. And also for perspective, since he's 6'5", she's 5'4". So there is a height difference. We now see Billy, and Billy's like, is something wrong? And she's like, no, just wanted to see Jacob. Jacob asks like, hey, what do you want to do today? And Bella responds with, I really don't care. Whatever's fine with me. And so he's like, okay, come look at what I've been working on. So he takes her to the garage, and he's been working on a Rabbit 1986 Volkswagen. I wanted to get the correct one. That's why I looked in my notes for that. And I think I talked about this in the last video, but cars play a really big role in this series because Stephanie's brothers loved cars, loved working on cars. And so she wanted to keep that throughout. And then also, yes, Jacob is named after her brother. But since researching Forever Dawn and knowing that Jacob wasn't supposed to be a love interest, I'm less grossed out by it. Do I think she could have renamed the character and named a different character after her brother? Yes, but I am less grossed out. So there's that. Jacob is still showing her the rabbit. He's so excited, and Bella very subtly is like, do you work on motorcycles too? And he raises his eyebrows, and she says, well, I've recently acquired 2 motorcycles that don't work at all. Do you think you'd want to help? Truly, Jacob would say yes to anything Bella asks him, so he's like, of course I will help. That sounds like a blast. And Bella tells him, do not tell anyone. Charlie will flip a lid if he finds out that I'm wanting to fix up these motorcycles to ride. She also tells him that she will pay him, and he's like, no, not at all. This is gonna be a great time. I don't want to take any of your money. And so she compromises, and she's like, well, I'll just pay for the parts then. And she compromises even further, saying, well, there's 2 bikes, so why don't you just take the other one, and then you can teach me how to ride it too. They talk about how she missed his party and he missed hers. And so he jokes around being like, we should do like a joint party or something to make up for it. And she says, yeah, it's a date. And as soon as she says the word date, his eyes sparkle and shine. And obviously Bella didn't mean an actual date, but oh, 16-year-old boy was happy over that word. Bella literally thinks to herself, oh, I'm gonna need to rein it in a little bit with him. I don't want him to get the wrong idea. We are just friends. If you're wondering, what money is Bella gonna use to fix up these motorcycles? She doesn't want Charlie to know, so obviously she's not gonna ask for money from Charlie. There's no way like her job's gonna be paying her that well. Thank you so much for asking, everyone. She is going to pay for these parts using her college fund. She decided she is never leaving Forks, so what does it matter? So if she has to use all the college fund for these motorcycles, so be it. And again, she's not leaving Forks because this is what reminds her of him. But in good news, guys, we now have motivation to live our lives again. Jacob and Bella hide the motorcycles in the garage. Jacob tells her, don't worry, Billy never comes out here. Billy is in a wheelchair, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that in the last video. Stephanie Meyer answered the question through a Q&A on the lexicon, of course, because someone asked, like, why is he in a wheelchair? And she said that it was due to complications from diabetes. When they're working on the bikes, there really was no room in the garage slash shed. It's probably a little closer to a shed, at least in my mind it is. So Bella would have to sit in the Rabbit Volkswagen because there was not enough room for the two of them to work. We learned that Jacob has two best friends and their names are Quil and Embry, and what a coinky-dink because these two boys show up right now. When the two boys see Bella, they both give each other a very weird look that Bella immediately clocks. And Bella says, okay, well, I need to leave soon. Can I come back tomorrow? And Quil hits Embry in the arm and just starts laughing and smiling. And this part cracked me up because this is such a teenage boy thing to do because they're just doing their thing while Bella and Jacob are having a completely different conversation. And Bella sees this exchange happening between Quil and Embry and she laughs over it and she notes, oh my God, this is the first time I've laughed since September. So it's a big deal. She ends up beating Charlie home and she smiles at him, which like really throws him off. Like truly. And so he takes a second to compose himself and then he's like, how was your day? And that night, Bella did not have a nightmare or numbness or pain or anything. She notes that this is the best she slept in a while. The next morning when Bella tells Charlie that she's gonna be hanging out with Jacob, Charlie's like, oh, okay. She gets to Jacob's house. They arranged for Billy to get a ride with Harry Clearwater over to Bella and Charlie's house. That way, Billy's not home and they can work on the bikes wherever they want. Bella notes that this was such a weird day for her because she really enjoyed herself and she knew it was because of Jacob. And it wasn't because Jacob was so happy to see her or was just constantly hovering and watching her to see if she was gonna crack. It honestly had nothing to do with her at all. It was all him. He was just warm and inviting and happy. So no wonder she's so eager to see him. Oh my God, guys, wait, I forgot to tell you this. So he's in her truck, he's looking in there and there's a gaping hole where a stereo would be. So if you remember, for her birthday, Emmett and them got her a brand new stereo and Edward took it with him when he left. So there's just a hole where her radio should be. And that just like really gets me. He didn't replace it or anything. He was just like taking it. And Jacob questions this. He's like, what happened? And Bella's just like, it was broken. No big deal, it was broken. Jacob questions like, who did this? Like who tried to fix it? What's going on? And she's like, I did. It was me. Jacob turns the conversation around because currently he's like, what the heck? So he asks her like, I've been talking up a storm. I've been a chatterbox. What's going on in Forks? Because remember, he doesn't live in Forks. He lives on the reservation in La Push. Bella responds with, nothing really. Your friends are much more interesting than mine, especially Quil. He is so funny. Jacob says, I think Quil likes you. And Bella laughs, saying, I think he's a little young for me. Jacob gets really serious and he goes, he's not that much younger than you. Just like a year and a couple of months. And what do you know, guys? It happens to be the same age difference between Jacob and Bella. Crazy. After working on the bikes, they head back to Jacob's house and Charlie is actually there because Billy has invited everyone over for his famous spaghetti. And when I mean everyone, I mean everyone. It is a packed house because not only are Charlie and Bella there, so are the Clearwaters, which is Harry, Sue, Leah, and Seth. We will talk about them more later. Bella really doesn't know them at this moment in time. She sees Leah, who is on the phone the whole time, and it's a landline, by the way, so she's not like taking her phone call outside. She's standing in the kitchen talking. We see Seth, who essentially worships the ground that Jacob walks, thinking he's the coolest person ever. I think Seth is like 14, by the way. And since there are so many people eating inside the house, Bella and Charlie and a couple others decide to eat outside. And Bella thinks to herself in this moment, whoa, I don't think I ever want to leave. She thinks this because it was loud, laughter was everywhere, and she didn't have to speak. She could just sit and listen. Charlie rides back home with Bella and she tells him that she's gonna go hang out with Jacob again tomorrow. And when Bella gets back home, she has an email from Renee. This email really sounds more like a journal entry, like she's not expecting me to respond, which obviously she's not because Bella has not responded to a lot of people over the course of a few months. So this is what we've learned about Renee. This is what Renee has been up to. Renee joined a book club, which is the exact same time as the meditation class that she recently quit. She started a subbing job for 2nd grade because she really missed teaching. Phil is now a baseball coach and he absolutely loves it. And they're planning a second honeymoon to Disney World because they are a couple of Disney adults. Bella responds to every single event in the email, and then she also adds on being like, I've been hanging out with Jacob recently. I went to the movies with Jessica. I'm living my life again. Hoping that this will make Renee very, very happy. Even though today was an amazing day for Bella, it didn't mean that she was lucky enough to have 2 nights nightmare-free. So we're having a bad dream tonight. And this one was a little different than the rest. She wasn't alone. Sam was there. Now remember, Sam is the one who found her in the woods. And it was really weird because Sam no longer had kind eyes. She saw through her peripheral vision that Sam had changed his shape. He was just standing there watching her, not offering to help, which is a very weird dream. But it does make sense for what we're gonna learn later. But in this moment, weird. Ella also started to live her life again at school. She started talking to these people. Ella hears Angela talk about how when her and Ben went on a hike, they saw this huge, like, bear-like thing that freaked them out. Take a mental note of this, please. Everyone at the table was like, you are lying, Angela. That's not a thing. There's no bears in Forks. And Bella decides that this is her moment. I can slide my way into the conversation. She goes, no, wait, she's right. Remember, guys, I work at the outside store with Mike, and there was a hiker that came in that also talked about bears recently. Mike, you remember, right? I swear to y'all, every single person at the table goes silent and just stares. And apparently this new girl named Katie, her jaw is on the floor. And I think it's because she's never heard Bella Swan speak. After a couple of seconds, Mike finally confirms the story. And he's like, yeah, that is what they said. After he confirms the story, he turns to Bella and he continues talking to her like, how was your weekend? Bella just talks about the movie like, yeah, Jessica and I went to go see a movie. Jessica's to the side rolling her eyes. And we are back to Mike Newton from book 1, guys. Mr. Chatterbox talking up a storm like, Bella is finally back. Not only that, but Bella is single. Bella went to go throw away her food and Angela follows her and says, thank you for defending me back there. Everyone was making me feel like I was crazy. She looks at Bella very seriously and she's like, are you doing okay? Bella responds with, not completely, but I'm doing better. Bella hears Lauren loudly whisper to Jessica as they're walking by, oh joy, Bella Swan is back. And we realize that today is January 19th, which means Bella has officially been going to Forks High School for 1 year. It has been 1 year exactly since she first met Edward. Bella is thinking to herself, I'm just now starting to not feel numb anymore, so why am I torturing myself by going here? And if you're thinking at home, where could she possibly be going that would be torturing her? She is going to the Cullen house. That is where she's driving to right now. She was afraid that there wouldn't be anything left for her there. But what were they gonna do? Bulldoze the house down? No, the house is still standing, but there's nothing in there. Completely empty. She also assumed if she went to the Cullen house, she would hear Edward's voice again, but no, she didn't. She tries to shake off the feeling that she's been left behind, and she's like, you know what? I'm gonna go see Jacob again, because that is the only thing that's making me happy at this point in time. Jacob was waiting for her, and as soon as she saw him, she immediately relaxed, thinking to herself, it is so much easier to breathe right now. She walked in the garage, one of the bikes, the red one, was standing up and it looked fully functioning. And Jacob tells her when he puts his mind to something, he becomes a little obsessive and he didn't want to stop until he was finished. He's like, would you still come over if we weren't working on this? And she's like, would you still let me? To which he responds with, oh, so you like spending time with me? Yeah, very much. And you know what, to prove it to you, let's do something tomorrow that's not mechanical. Let's work on homework or something. Later that night, her mom emailed her back and is ecstatic by Bella's previous email. And so Bella wrote back and explained how her day went, minus the motorcycles, minus that. As I said earlier, Mike is back to his old self, talking up a storm and essentially is trying to explain the whole last semester in like an hour is what it feels like to Bella. Like that's how fast he is talking. Bella smiled and she laughed, but it wasn't as effortless as it was with Jacob. And her laughing and smiling seemed harmless until, you know, it was time to close up the store for the night. And Mike tells her, I heard you had to leave the movie early last week because you were so scared. Like, that's such a shame. And Bella shrugs her shoulders like, guess I'm just a wimp. Mike goes on to say, you should see about a movie, something you would actually like. On Friday, with me. Bella very hesitantly says, like a date? Mike nods and says, if you want, but it doesn't have to be like that. Okay, well, I don't date. And Mike is like, we could just go as friends. To which Bella's like, okay, like, yeah, that sounds so fun, but I actually can't because I'm planning to study with my friend Jacob, but maybe some other time we can get a group together or something. Mike does look visibly disappointed, but also he's like, you know what, I will take what I can get, sure. Later that night, Jacob goes over to Bella's house, they study, they have dinner together, and right before he is about to leave, she's like, you know what, I can drive you home. He laughs at her, and then she's like, well, can I at least come over tomorrow? To which he responds with, of course, but let me call you first before you just show up. Bella literally frowns when he says this, and so he's just laughing at her because he's like, oh, she really does want to hang out with me. Later that night, Bella has another nightmare. And again, the scenery in her nightmare has changed. It's now a wide sea of ferns and nothing else. Very vast and just ferns everywhere. And obviously, in this nightmare, she is still lost. Next day, Jacob calls Bella and he tells her that he finished the bikes, and so Bella is sprinting to get over to his house, and as soon as he sees her, he is sprinting to get to her. They are both ecstatic at this moment in time. They drive to the south part of town, that way no one will see them with the motorcycles, and Bella notices that there are some people jumping off cliffs, which is making her scream like, oh my gosh, we need to go save them immediately. And Jacob is laughing at her, being like, haven't you ever heard of like cliff diving, cliff jumping? It's recreational fun. It's good to get the adrenaline going. And as soon as he mentions the adrenaline rush, she's like, oh my God, you're gonna have to take me. That sounds like a blast. We are going to have to do that next. Obviously he says yes. He also adds though that they will not be jumping from that high up. We learn that the guys that are jumping are a part of a group in La Push that Jacob is not a fan of one bit, and their main leader of sorts is Sam, and my oh my, Jacob cannot stand Sam. He is like, Sam thinks he's the cream of the crop, everyone loves him, they all praise him for staying here instead of going to college, Sam can do no wrong, he calls their group the Protectors. He does not like Sam. Also notice that the way that everyone in La Push treats him is just creepy and makes no sense because they're treating him as if he would be their leader, when in reality, if their group had a leader, it would obviously be Billy, Jacob's dad, not Sam. The reason he says this is because Jacob's great-grandfather was their last chief, which would kind of just go down the line. There's actually a little more a part of this that Jacob doesn't know yet, which means y'all won't know until he knows, so we'll talk about it later in the video. The last thing that Jacob adds that y'all need to make a mental note of in this conversation is he says that the group of Protectors look at him as if they're waiting for him to do something or realize something. Y'all know who has just joined this group of Protectors, and it is pissing Jacob off. Embry, and he is ignoring Jacob and ignoring Quil, and Quil, Embry, and Jacob used to make fun of the Protectors and be like, what is wrong with them? They are crazy. And now here's Embry happily going along with every little thing that Sam has said. Very sus. It says that this group acts like Sam owns them. And no one is giving Jacob any answers, and it's frustrating him. And in this moment, Jacob kind of looks like he is about to cry. And Bella doesn't know what to do during this time because she's like, oh my gosh, my one light in my life is sad and is suffering. How can I help him? And so she tells him, you know what, if it gets worse, you can just come live with me and Charlie. You can happily leave La Push and just come live with us. We will protect you. Don't worry. They are not going to get to you. You'll always have us. Jacob freezes when she says this, and while he's freezing, Bella's thinking to herself, wow, this is such a great friendship. We are so warm and nice, like we are great friends. But you can literally tell that he's not having those thoughts. He's not having thoughts of friendship in that moment. In fact, he says, if this is how you're going to react every time I'm frustrated or sad, I mean, maybe I should act like this a little more. And he starts touching her hair, and so she's like, well, this is a friendship for me, so I need to get us back on the path of friendship so he doesn't get the wrong idea. So she just adds, wow, it's so crazy that I'm 2 years older than you. Crazy. And he's just like, okay. And literally saved by the bell because they are now in the exact spot where they are going to try out the motorcycles. So Bella can kind of put this conversation behind her and move forward. He was going through the basics with her, and he's like, whatever you do, do not hit that back brake. I know that you're going to be tempted to because of how you drive your truck, but do not kick that. Do not hit it, press it, whatever, ignore that it exists. And when Jacob feels confident enough that Bella has been listening to him, he lets go and she is off on her own. She is immediately shocked that Edward's voice has returned. He is back. He is back telling Bella, this is stupid, this is idiotic, this is reckless. And she's just like, oh my God, he's back, he's back. And since she's so excited yet frazzled that she's hearing him, she just stops what she's doing and the bike nearly falls on her. And so Jacob is just running over to her being like, are you okay? Are you good? Are you good? And she's like, yeah, I understand what I'm doing now. I'm fine. Let's go again. Jacob keeps talking to her about something and Bella is not paying attention because the voice is still there. Edward's voice is telling her, I told you so. I told you this was stupid and reckless. I told you, I told you. And so she's just honing in on this and it finally clicks in her mind why she can hear him. It's not because she's having deja vu, because she's never had this experience before on the motorcycle with Edward. It's a combo of the danger and adrenaline rush that she is getting that is causing him to pop up in her mind. So she immediately hops back on the bike and goes again. Edward's in her head saying, go home to Charlie right now. And Bella is at the point in her life where she will do anything to keep hearing him. So she's like, I'm gonna go a little faster. I need to keep hearing him. I can't lose his voice. I can't. In the background, we hear Jacob being like, oh, maybe I should slow down. Let's slow down a bit. Ignored. Fully ignored. Bella's adrenaline is through the roof right now because she's just going faster and faster and faster. And when she realizes she has no clue like what she's doing, like maybe I should slow down, instead of listening to Jacob's advice at the beginning of their little training session where he's like, don't hit that back brake, she slams down on it because she forgets that he said that. And so she goes flying. The bike is on top of her. She is face down in the grass. She's dizzy, disoriented. And Jacob is running towards her. He's calling after her and she's not focusing on that, but she's like, oh my God, I now know how to hear Edward's voice again. Now, this is different than in the movie. So I'll get a little closer to explain. In the movie, when she's riding this bike, she keeps turning around because she's seeing Edward. Like she's literally seeing all of him in the distance. And so she keeps turning around to keep looking at him. And that's how she ends up crashing because her bike goes like a little crooked. Whereas in the book, she's not seeing Edward at all. She's hearing his voice in her mind. When Jacob finally gets over to her, Bella's like, I want to go again. We're doing this again. And Jacob's like, ain't no way. We're not doing that again. Do you see your forehead? You are bleeding right now, like quite a bit. And so she touches her forehead and she's like, oh my God, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. And Jacob looks at her like she's crazy. Like, why are you apologizing for bleeding? It's okay. That's a normal human thing. And just like in the movies, he takes off his shirt and he puts it to her head to put pressure on the wound. Jacob leaves for a little bit because that's how far away she got from the truck. So he's running to get back to the truck so that he can bring it over to her and they can leave. While she's waiting, she's trying to come up with a good story that Charlie will believe as to why she has a wound on her head. And the best thing she can come up with is, yeah, we were working in the garage in the shed and I tripped and I face planted into a hammer. That is such a bizarre excuse. It's so bizarre, but you know what? Charlie believes it. He does. He's like, yeah, that sounds like something you would do. We also get a little bit of a foreshadowing event because it is freezing outside. I believe it's now February. It might still be late January. And he's like, I don't need my shirt. I don't need a jacket. I'm actually like really hot natured. Hint, hint, wink, wink. And Bella is so out of it right now because she's probably concussed if we're being so for real right now. And so she's just looking at him being like, are you really 16? Oh my God, Jacob, you are so beautiful. Has anyone ever told you that you are just so beautiful? And then she's thinking to herself, oh my God, I didn't mean to think that. He's going to think that I'm into him now that I just called him beautiful. Which, to be completely fair, any 15, 16-year-old boy or girl would think that you're into them if you're calling them beautiful and hanging out with them as much as you are. So in a little bit of defense to Jacob, I see where he's coming from. I see where his feelings are coming from in this book. Emphasis on in this book. I will change my tune soon. No one fret. As I said, she probably has a concussion when in reality, She does have a concussion because they have to take her to the doctor where she has to get 7 stitches. And also Charlie is told that he has to wake her up every 2 hours to make sure that she's okay. And also he did in fact buy the hammer story. Didn't even bat an eye or question it. But even though he did buy the hammer story, he's like, maybe you should take it like a little easier. I know you love hanging out with Jacob, but maybe y'all can do something else instead of hanging out in the garage. And she changes her tune a little bit. She backtracks on her story and she's like, oh, I'm actually so sorry. I think the concussion has given me some memory loss or something because we weren't in the garage. We were on a hike. And he was like, a hike? You need to be careful going out in the woods. There's been bear sightings recently. I don't know if I want you in the woods anymore. The next time Bella and Jacob hang out, Jacob's like, maybe we should cool it on the bikes. Maybe we should just do something else a little less dangerous. And Bella's saying to herself, well, dang, how on earth am I going to get that adrenaline rush to see Edward now? And then a little light bulb flickers in her mind going, maybe that's not the only way that I'm able to hear his voice. Maybe if I go to a place that it was just so special for me and him, I'll be able to hear him again. And do y'all know what that place is? The Meadow. So Bella is now telling Jacob, like, that's completely fine. I actually really want to visit this place. I saw it once when I was on a hike and I haven't been able to find it since. It's this beautiful meadow. I feel like that's what we should do. We should go try and find it. Jacob doesn't ask any questions because he's so excited to keep hanging out with Bella. And so he's like, I have a compass. We will find this meadow. It will be so much fun. Little does he know that the reason she wants to find the meadow is so that she can hear her ex-boyfriend's voice. But that's okay. That's okay. He's just happy as a clam to be there for this moment in time. Also, the book specifically says that we are now in February, which means that it has been about a month since she has woken up and started living her life again. Bella and Jacob are walking, trying to find this meadow. They're not having any luck. And Jacob is so surprised that she would have went on a hike without a trail to even find this meadow in the first place. But he doesn't question it. He just shrugs it off because, as I said, he is just so ecstatic to spend time with Bella. So while they're on this walk, she asks him about Embry. He tells her nothing has changed. He is still hanging out with Sam, ignoring me and Quil, and it is making me so angry. Bella and Jacob end their hike once they hit the 6-mile mark. And Bella's like, great, this is also a lost cause. Did this even happen? Like, am I tripping right now? Did we even go to a meadow? Did he try and take that with him too? And Jacob can visibly see her disappointment. He's like, don't worry, we'll try again tomorrow. We'll keep coming back until we find it. Bella thinks to herself that her life is like a lost moon. The planet that she belonged to was destroyed. She continued on in a life where she's just orbiting around in empty space. Basically just ignoring all the laws of gravity and just holding space with that. If you didn't know, that's what people were doing. If you get that reference, you're amazing. Anyway, she does actually feel like a lost planet just kind of floating around though, despite my reference. Eventually, Jacob does let her start going on the bikes again and she is getting better and better, but this makes Bella upset because the better she gets at riding the bike, the less she hears Edward's voice because she's no longer in danger. So all Bella wants to do now is find this dang meadow. That's all she wants. But guys, it's now Valentine's Day. Jacob gets her a little box of candy hearts. Oh, and Jacob also, when he hands her the candy, he's like, will you be my Valentine? And she's feeling so uncomfy, being like, how do I respond? What should I say? Oh no. And so she's just like, what does that entail? And he shrugs, being like, oh, the usual thing, just like prisoner for life vibes. And Bella's like, well, if that's all, sure. And she takes the candy. And she's racking her brain trying to think of ways to friend zone him yet again. While she's thinking about all this, Jacob is still talking to her. And he is like, we're still hanging out on Friday, right? Like, we're doing the bikes together. And she's like, oh, Friday. Seeing her opportunity to friend zone him. Oh my gosh, I actually can't on Friday. I'm going to the movies. When she says she's going to the movies, his face gets really sad and she feels very, very guilty. So she's like, you'll come with us too, right? Like, you'll come with us to the movie. Extending out that invite that was meant to friend zone him. But yeah, kind of reels him back in. Because he's like, seniors, you want me to hang out with your senior friends? You want me to meet your friends? This whole thing kind of frustrates me a little bit because so much for distance, so much for friend zoning, Bella now has to form a group to go to the movies. So that one, Jacob doesn't know that she lied, and then two, so that it's not just her and Jacob. The best way to do this is asking Mike if he wants to go to the movies with her on Friday, and when Mike gets ecstatic, being like, oh, she's asking me on a date, finally, it's my time, she has to reel him back in, being like, no, we're all gonna be going as a group with friends. Like, I'm thinking Jessica, Angela, Ben, Eric, Tyler, Lauren, any of them. Let's all go as a group. And then some of my La Push friends as well. I think that could be really fun. She also tells him, like, we're gonna go see the movie Crosshairs, which is an action film. In the movie, they changed the name of what they're gonna go see. So instead of it being Crosshairs, it's Face Punch, which is such a weird name. And I don't know why they changed it, but in the movies they go see Face Punch. And Mike is a little upset that she's inviting some of the La Push kids to go with them. And Mike's like, aren't they sophomores? Like, why are they hanging out with us? And Bella just says, oh, well, I've been tutoring them recently. But the group is looking like Angela, Ben, Mike, Bella, Jacob, Quil. Which is a pretty decent sized group, you know, until they show up and we learn that Angela and Ben have the stomach flu. And then Quil also doesn't want to go. And this kind of shrinks the group down to Mike and Bella and Jacob. Yes. So Jacob drives to Bella's house. And what does he drive in? He drives in the Rabbit Volkswagen because he finished his car and he's so excited. He's like, can I drive us to the movies tonight? It's gonna be so fun. Mike shows up. He's visibly uncomfortable because he wanted alone time with Bella, as did Jacob. And Mike's like, sure, Jacob can drive. That's fine. When Bella informs them that it's just the three of them, Mike's like, oh, like maybe we could all do this another time. And Bella's like, yes. But Jacob, on the other hand, is like, no, I'm good with going to see the movie. Mike, if you don't want to go, Bella and I will just go. It'll be a good time. And Mike, being jealous, is like, no. I'm going to go with y'all. It's fine. We'll have a great time. And they don't have a good time at all. So let's go to the movies. Let's go see Crosshairs. Let's see what the three of them are up to. Because it's not awkward at all. And when they get to the movie, Jacob has to give Bella a $10 bill for her to buy his ticket because he's not old enough to go see this movie. This movie is so gory. Poor Mike is looking above the screen so that he doesn't have to watch exactly what's going on. But Jacob is over here laughing at everything, which makes Bella like, maybe I'll also laugh and make fun of everything. So they're having a great time while Mike is just focusing above the screen. He does not want to watch what's going on, and oh my Lanta, the most awkward thing ever that makes me want to hunker down and just disappear for quite a bit of time occurs because Bella is smack dab in the middle of these two boys. Smack dab in the middle. And at the same moment, both guys are holding out their hands like this. Like they're resting it on the little armrest like this, open face, where they are waiting for Bella to put her hand in their hand and hold it. And I'm just like, why? Like, she just is like, I'm just gonna cross my arms and pretend I'm cold because I'm not holding either of their hands. What? And the movie did such a good job of this scene because, oh, it made me just as uncomfortable as I was in the book. Ooh, snaps to the director, snaps to them keeping that scene in. Whew. Anyway, there's another scene in the movie where it gets a bit gory and Mike's like, I'm done. I gotta go. And he literally gets sick in the bathroom. Bella and Jacob follow him out of the theater. Jacob goes into the bathroom to see what's up with Mike. He comes back out and he's like, yep, that guy literally is a weak baby. Bella and Jacob are waiting for Mike, honestly, to stop being sick so they can all go home. And so they sit down. Jacob puts his arm around her and Bella moves a bit. She's like, oh no. We're not doing that. And Jacob asks her, you like me, right? Better than that guy in the bathroom. Like, you like me more than him. Bella responds with, yeah, but that's all. Jacob grins and he's like, that is fine with me as long as you like me the most and the best. That is all I care about. And you think I'm good looking, so I'm prepared to be annoyingly persistent till the end of time. Oh my, does he keep his word on that one in the future books? He is very much so, annoyingly persistent. We will see that later. Just hold tight for future videos. She says, you can be as persistent as you want, but I'm never going to change my mind. He very sadly says, it's the other one, right? And I just want to note that Jacob does not say Edward's name. He has noticed that anytime Edward's name is brought up, she shuts down. And so he's very, very careful in making sure that he does not mention his name. So he's referred to as the other one. Jacob looks at her and says, don't get mad at me for hanging around. I'm not going to give up on you. I've got loads of time. And she nods her head saying, sure, but don't expect more from me or more from this. He then grabs her hand and holds it. And he's like, this doesn't bother you though. And she's like, yeah, you can hold my hand if you want, but I think it means something more to you than it does to me. It doesn't mean the same thing. He responds with, and that's my problem. And he's tracing her hand a little bit, and he comes across this scar on this part of her hand, and he says, why is this scar so cold? That is so weird. What did you get this from? Obviously, this cold scar is the one she got from James, but she can't tell Jacob that. And so she's like, I can't keep track of all the scars that I have. You know, I'm a klutz. And he laughs and is like, okay, yeah, like fair point, but that's such a weird one, like weird placement. Before they can carry on with this conversation, Mike finally comes out of the bathroom, for sure sick with the stomach flu that is going around the town of Forks right now. And so they very carefully get him to the car, and they have to roll down all the windows, and Bella is freezing right now. She is frigid. And Jacob is just fine. He's completely fine. If anything, he's a little warm. I was like, are you okay? Like, how are you not cold right now? And so she reaches out and she touches his forehead and she's like, oh my God, you also have a fever. You're also sick. And he's like, simmer down, I'm completely fine. I just run a little warm. And when he says this, he removes her hand from his forehead and he sets it down on the console and he leaves it there. Like he leaves his hand on top of her hand. And she lets him because she's freezing and he is so warm. And Bella feels so guilty the whole ride home because she's just thinking to herself, oh my God, I keep encouraging him. She has no clue how to explain to him she's not even a person anymore. She is an empty shell. Almost like a condemned house. Like sure, she was better now, but it was just a small room in that house that was fixed. The whole thing was still not okay. A big reason for the guilt she is feeling right now is she knows she can't turn Jake away. She can't send him away because selfishly, he is her lifeline right now. Almost reviving her and bringing her back, not completely to herself, but at least to a livable state, and is what is making her happy. I get back to Bella's house after dropping Mike off. Jacob looks at her and is like, I actually think I might have a fever. Like I'm now starting to not feel good at all. Like it was very all of a sudden. But before he leaves, he tells her, I know that you're unhappy a lot, but I am always going to be here for you. And I won't let you down, so you can count on me. And she responds with, I know, thank you. But she can't tell him what she's really thinking, which is that she's gonna be the one to hurt him. She's going to be the one to let him down. And when he leaves her driveway, she is thinking to herself, oh my goodness, how I wish Jacob was born as my brother so that there wouldn't be any blurry lines or confusing signals or anything like that. That way she'd be blame-free and not feel like she was using him. Emphasis on brother. She also has come to the realization that she loves him. Is she in love with him? No, there is a difference, but she does love him and care for him. She knew better than anyone else that love gave someone the power to break you, and that Jacob is her best friend. Because of this, she will always love him, but it'll never be enough, and it'll never be in the way that he wants. A little while later, she hasn't heard from Jacob, and she's like, did he make it home all right? Like, he was really sick. I need to make sure. And she calls 7 or 8 times. Billy finally picks up and is like, yes, Jake is home. He's fine. He is sick though, so you probably won't hear from him in a while. Don't show up to La Push, and clicks on her, hangs up. The next morning, do you know who's sick? Bella. She has the stomach flu that literally everyone and their mother has in Forks right now. When she's feeling a little better, she does call Jacob to see how he's doing. And he just tells her everything hurts, nothing feels okay, and it's not the stomach flu, but you can't come over. And guess what, guys? After that, Jacob doesn't call. He doesn't. And she's so anxious that he's hurt, he's sick, he's not okay. Maybe he even left, like who knows? She's so anxious over this because Homeboy left her high and dry and she doesn't want that to happen to her again. And so she keeps calling and no one is picking up. Eventually, Billy does answer and he's like, yeah, instead of it being the stomach flu, oh my goodness, Jacob has mono. You still can't come over. And Bella's like, mono? And so she WebMDs his symptoms and she's like, this does not look or sound like he has mono. The kissing disease, that is not Jacob. He does not have mono. And also it came on so quickly, he didn't have any of these other symptoms. I am being lied to. She has Charlie call to see what's up and we learn that his friend Harry Clearwater has been in the hospital with a heart condition. And that is why no one in La Push is answering Bella's calls and apparently the phone lines are down as well. So they're not ignoring her, they claim. There's just a lot going on. And Bella is thinking to herself, well, the phone lines are down. We're claiming he has mono, but WebMD told me that it's okay to have visitors. Who is his father to stop me? She will give them 1 week. 1 week. If she does not get a call, she is showing up to La Push. And she's getting antsy during this week. She almost doesn't make it through because she's having these horrible nightmares again. She's having a little bit of attachment issues and her saving grace and sunshine and warmth in the world is not there. And so she continues to call La Push. Billy answers and he's like, you know what, Bella, you're right. It's not mono, it's a virus. Don't come over. Don't. And so now she's like, oh my God, it's me. It's a me problem. He doesn't want to be around me just like how Edward didn't want me. Oh no. Like she is having a mentee B, if you will, a mental breakdown right now. Charlie can see this. And so he's getting a little fearful because he's just starting to get Bella back. Like he went through a lot when she was in the months of September to January. He's a little afraid and he's like, well, you know what? I was going to hang out with my friend Harry who's been having his heart issues recently, but I can hang out with you instead. And she's like, no, go hang out with Harry. Have a good time. It's fine. He tells her, maybe you could go hang out with some of your other friends. Yeah, just if you do, please do not go to the woods. There have been a lot more of these bear sightings recently and I can't have anything happen to you. She agrees. But if you and I know anything about Miss Bella Swan, she don't listen. So she's decided, okay, I can't talk to Jacob. Edward has left me. I don't have any adrenaline thing so that I can hear Edward anymore, but I can go find this dang Meadow. So she decides to go on a hike. And y'all, she was booking it. She's somehow faster than she was when she was with Jacob, and she's just marching, and by golly, she finds that Meadow. She actually does. But to her disappointment, it's not what she hoped it would be. It definitely didn't look as magical as it once did when she was there with Edward. And while it was the same Meadow, it didn't hold what she was searching for. Edward's voice was not there. And so she just sinks down into the grass and she grips her chest, having a panic attack, thinking to herself, how foolish am I to try and find this Meadow? Because even though this is the place I went to with him that's so special to us, there's nothing special about it without him. And while she's mid-panic attack, she sees a figure in the tree line. And y'all, it wasn't a stray hiker, it wasn't a giant bear, but it was someone that you and I both know. Do y'all have any guesses? I'll let you guys guess a little bit because it's kind of fun. Let me step aside, you can look at the board, take your guesses, I'll give you 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1, it was Laurent. Laurent has shown up in this meadow. She's not scared. In fact, she's ecstatic. She's like, oh my God, Laurent, hi. And he's like, what the heck? Why are you so happy to see me? The reason she's so happy though is because he's putting this magic back into the meadow, so to speak. Like he is sparkling, he is shining, and it's starting to feel like her and Edward's place. So she's starting to feel a little less crazy about this whole ordeal. And yes, while he's putting magic in the meadow, and it's a darker magic, like it's not a calming magic, it's dark magic that she's feeling. It's still magic, so who is she to complain? Her thoughts, by the way, not mine. Laurent speaks and says, Bella? I didn't expect to see you here. I went to the Cullen house and it was empty. I figured that they would have taken you with them. Aren't you their little pet? And ladies and gents, when he starts talking, this is the moment that she sees his eyes. What we learned at the end of the first book is Laurent was going to Denali, which was where the other coven lived that also only ate animals. He was going to adapt to that lifestyle and join that little diet, which means his eyes should be golden or just black. But in this moment, his eyes were red. So keep that in mind, because Bella is no longer excited to see Laurent. Laurent steps closer to Bella and he goes, "Do the Cullens ever visit?" And the voice that shows up when Bella is in danger is here, saying lie. Lie to him right now. And Bella says, "Now and again, they show up. They'll be back soon though." "Really?" Laurent says. "The house smelled so vacant, like they haven't been here in months." The voice in her head says, "You need to lie better." Bella shrugs and she's like, "Oh, well, I'll tell Carlisle you stopped by next time I see him. He'll be so excited to know that you were here." She pauses and then she says, "But I won't mention this encounter to Edward. He's still a little touchy over the James incident." "Oh, really? Is he?" Laurent steps closer. "Yeah, how are things in Denali?" Laurent explains, "Yeah, I like Tanya. I even like her sister Irina even more. I've never stayed in one place for so long, but the restrictions to the diet that they have, they're hard, and sometimes I cheat." And Bella says, "Oh, well, Jasper also has those difficulties too. You'll get used to it." The voice in her head says, "Don't move." So Bella just keeps on talking to me like, "Have you heard from Victoria?" "As a matter of fact, yes, I have. I'm actually here as a favor to her, and she won't be happy." Bella questions, "She won't be happy about you?" No, Laurent says, "She won't be happy that I'm not saving you for her. You see, she's a little put out with your mate Edward, who destroyed James. James was actually Victoria's mate, and so in Victoria's mind, it's a little bit of an eye for eye situation. He got rid of James, her mate. It seems only fair that she would get rid of you, his mate. I didn't think that it would be so easy to find you, but would you look at this? And yes, she will be so angry at me for not saving you for her. But you've caught me at a bad time. You see, the reason I'm in these woods right now is because I'm hunting and I'm thirsty and you smell so good." The voice in her head tells her to threaten him. And so Bella's like, "They'll know it was you that did this. They'll know." Laurent laughs, saying, "The smell will be washed away with the rain. And honestly, there's no reason for Edward to think of me involved in this mess at all. For all they know, I'm in Denali. And don't worry, Bella. It's nothing personal. I'm just thirsty." "Beg," the voice screams at her. "Please, please don't do this." Laurent explains, "Oh, Bella, you are so lucky that it's me that found you. I will make this as quick as I possibly can, whereas Victoria would have tortured you. And if only you knew her plans for you, you'd be thanking me already." And she keeps repeating, "Edward, Edward, Edward," in her mind. And I just want to note, this is specifically the first time that she's letting herself think of his name and not just as the voice or him or that guy. Like, she's letting his name back in her mind because she thinks she is about to be unalived. In fact, she's thinking, "Edward, who I love. Edward, I love. Edward." Laurent suddenly pauses, which freaks Bella out because he starts to back away, almost looking fearful. And then Bella sees it in the tree line. She sees this huge figure that can't be a bear because it's too big. It just can't be. And it's this huge black figure. And as it starts growling and moving its way forward, she notices that there are more and more and more of them forming a V shape. Bella is frozen and just waiting for them to attack because she knows it's coming. But she's surprised when they start to attack and start running. They're not going after her. They are trailing after Laurent, who has started to sprint away. And Bella sinks to her knees thinking, what on earth was that caused a vampire to run away in fear instead of fight? I didn't think anything could be stronger than a vampire, so how could anything scare a vampire? And when she gets home, she runs to Charlie and goes, "Charlie, I know you told me not to go in the woods, but I did anyway, and I ran into the creature. It's not a bear, it's a wolf. It is a giant, giant wolf, and it's not one. There are many, many of them." And Charlie's like, "What? Why did you go in the woods?" Like, he's losing his mind. He's like, "Okay, breathe, breathe, breathe. You're okay. I'm gonna handle this. No more woods though. Don't go in the woods. And once Charlie has calmed her down, he changes the subject and goes, I thought you said Jacob was still sick, by the way, because when I was out and about in town, I saw him at the convenience store with a big group of friends and he looks so different. Like, he looks huge. I don't know how that boy is growing so fast. This is also rattling Bella. Like, why is he not calling me back? He really is just leaving me in the dust, just like Edward did. But that's not her only concern at this moment, because she is freaked out that Victoria is lurking around every single corner. Bella keeps trying to call Jacob, and when she thinks about going to La Push, she is like, I can't, because that will be leading Victoria to them. She knows that Laurent has already fled to go back to Victoria to say, yep, I found Bella unprotected. And in reality, there's nowhere safe for Bella to go, because if she goes to Renee, they will just find Renee and hurt her mom. Bella is really just by herself right now, and she's just kind of thinking through everything, and a lot of it has to do with Jacob, and it finally clicks into place. This is Sam's doing. He has corrupted him. And as soon as she comes to that realization, she thinks to herself, I don't even care if I lead Victoria and Laurent to La Push. I have got to save Jacob from Sam. And in Bella's mind, this is a rescue mission. So before she leaves, she makes sure to tell Charlie about this, and Charlie is like, you know what? I'm sorry this is happening to you, but you need to let Billy handle this, because I have already had 2 missing tourists recently because of these wolves that you told me about. I got a lot on my plate. Bella is so stunned by this news that Charlie just told her, because she's like, wouldn't Laurent have just gotten rid of the wolf problem? Did Laurent just run away and leave the wolves? That's weird. Bella is on her way to La Push. She sees Quil while she is driving, and so she stops her car and she's like, have you seen Jacob? And poor Quil just says, yeah, from a distance. He's been hanging out with Sam and them. And the reason Quil is just out and about on the street is because he's been trying to follow his friends, Jacob and Embry, from a distance. She gives Quil a ride to La Push, she drops him off, and she just waits for Jacob. And when she sees Jacob, he looks completely different. He has cut off all of his long hair. That wig from the first movie is gone. And he's huge. He is buff and in shape and not the same Jacob that she saw at the movies. She also notes that his friendly smile is completely gone, and that there was almost a darkness to him, like her sunshine human was gone. He screams at her when he sees her, like, what do you want? And Bella just says, I want to talk to you. Alone. Jacob turns to look at the men behind him, and he stares specifically at Sam. And Sam just nods. And so Jacob's like, sure, let's go talk. And when they get away from the group, Jacob looks at her, he's like, it's not what you think it is. We were wrong about Sam. Sam is actually just trying to help. And if you want to blame someone over this situation, you should blame the bloodsuckers that you love so much. Bella's taken back, like, whoa, what do you mean? And Jacob says, you know who I mean. I'm talking about the Cullens. Bella says, they left over 6 months ago. How can we be blaming them instead of Sam? Sam isn't doing anything to me. And yeah, sure, they left, but they set everything in motion. And Bella is so confused, saying, what's in motion? What are you even blaming them for? Jacob simply says, existing. And Edward's voice pops up in Bella's mind, which means she feels unsafe. And his voice says, give him a chance to calm down. Bella looks at Jacob and she's like, are you breaking up with me? And Jacob says, if that were the case, I would just say, let's be friends. And Bella's just apologizing, saying, I'm so sorry that I can't change the way that I feel about you. I'm so sorry if you think that I've led you on. And like, maybe I could change. Maybe if you give me some time, just don't quit on me right now. You can't quit on me. She's so desperate right now that the book says she was stretching the truth so far it started to curve into a lie. And the moral of this conversation is Jacob has told her, it's not you, it's me, gotta go. And he leaves her in the rain. She is frozen, cannot move. Billy exits his house and is like, can you go home? Like, just go home, Bella. After a while, she finally heads home and Charlie is like, what happened? And Bella just responds with, Jacob said he can't be my friend anymore. And Charlie's like, that doesn't make any sense. You were so upfront with him from the beginning that this wasn't going to be a relationship. It was just a friendship. What is he talking about? And Charlie has gone into full dad mode, because when Bella goes upstairs, she hears Charlie on the phone with Billy. And Charlie is going off right now. He tells Billy, do not put this on Bella. You and I both know that she was so upfront with Jacob the entire time. And I know my daughter. And there's a pause, which means Billy said something to Charlie, and Charlie says, what do you mean I don't know my daughter as well as I think I do? This is hurting my family, Billy. There's another pause, and everything gets very, very serious. Charlie says, okay, fine. If your boys step a single toe out of line, just know that I will be there. And in that moment, Bella realizes that Charlie went from Billy's best friend Charlie to Chief Swan in like 3 seconds. We actually have a new dream tonight. In the dream, it is raining and Jacob is beside her, but his features start to change. And his face turns white as bone and his eyes turn this golden color and then red and then back to gold. And his face was so beautiful that it hurt. Which, if you can put 2 and 2 together, when she says that Jacob transformed, he basically transformed into Edward. So she was seeing Edward again and then all of a sudden he vanished. She wakes up freaked out from this dream and she hears fingernails scratching on her windowsill and she's like, oh my God, this is Victoria. This is the end of me. She found me. Oh no, oh no. And while Bella is freaking out, she's trying really hard not to scream because she's like, if I scream, Charlie's gonna come in here and then Charlie is in danger. And then she hears a guy say, Bella, open the window. Lo and behold, it's not Victoria or Laurent outside. It is Jacob, who is hanging from a tree. She's so angry at him for 2 reasons. 1, she cried over him. And worse than that, this is an awkward and louder version of how Edward would enter her room. And so it's just reminding her of Edward, except it's a less cool way of him entering her room. When Jacob finally climbs into her window, he tells her that he came to apologize, saying that all he wants to do is explain what's going on to her, but he can't. There are rules he has to follow. It's like, have you ever had a secret that you've just wanted to tell someone so badly, but you can't? And she's looking at him like, are you kidding me right now? Really? Nod, saying then you understand that sometimes loyalty gets in the way. Something not being our secret to tell. And even though I can't tell you, there's no rule about you guessing it correctly. Do you remember the first day we talked in La Push? That story I told you? And she's like, yeah, about the cold ones. And he goes, no. I mentioned something else. And Bella that day was so honed in on Edward, the Cullens, cold ones, whoa, that she doesn't remember the other half of the legend. He can see that nothing is really clicking for her. And so he asks her another question. He said, did you honestly not know? Was I the one who told you? And when she doesn't say anything, he goes, see? That is the loyalty that I was talking about. I am tied to this. This is a life sentence for me. He also explains that she needs to not hate Sam because he really is helping Jacob so much right now. And he knew that it was really risky to come see her tonight, but he wasn't going to break his promise to her. And if you're thinking what promise, it's the promise that he made when they were at the movies saying, I will not hurt you, I will not leave you. And before Jacob climbs back out of her window, he says, I'm gonna need you to work a little harder on remembering that story. And when you figure it out, come see me, we will talk. You know, if you still want to see me after you know. When he is out of the window, he says, one more thing I need you to do for me. At least call if you never want to see me again once you figure it out. And then he's gone. She's able to fall back asleep and she has another dream. She's in the forest, cause duh. And the smell is different than normal. She smells the brine of the ocean, which means that she is in the woods close to La Push. And Jacob is there in her dream telling her to run. And now she knows why she's having a bit of deja vu within this dream, because this is the same dream she had in book 1 when she realized what Edward was. So she's just watching this dream play out and trying to figure out what she was missing. And then all of a sudden, when Jacob tells her to run and we see Edward, she focuses in on what Jacob was doing. And that is when Jacob turns into this reddish brown wolf. And yes, this is the same exact dream from the first book. This foreshadowing event was in the first book. She wakes up screaming and then thinking to herself, oh my God, on the beach, he told me that he descends from wolves, which is the natural enemy of the vampire. When it's finally an appropriate time to get up in the morning. And she starts to make comparisons to the Cullen family, but then she's like, that's unfair to compare the two because the Cullen family didn't attack innocent people. And so she doesn't know what she wants to do. If you are sitting here being so confused at Bella's thought process, let me explain something to you, especially if you've already read the books, you've already seen the movies. She believes that the wolves are the ones attacking everything. So she's out here believing that what Jacob is doing is hurting people and that they are the real enemy and force behind everything going wrong in Forks right now. That is where Bella is currently at with the knowledge that she's been presented. Okay? Okay, before Bella leaves to go to La Push because she decides, you know what, yes, I am going to tell Jacob of all of this. Because again, she doesn't think he knows, which is kind of dumb. But anywho, she runs into Charlie and Charlie tells her a big group of us are going to go try and hunt these wolves. And Bella's like, no, don't do that. Please don't. No. And now Bella's like, well, I actually have to warn them about the hunters too because I don't need them being attacked by my dad. She's got a lot of thoughts going on. She really does. She goes to the push, and when she gets there, she goes into Billy's house. Billy lets her in, and she goes to Jacob's room, and he's in a very, very deep sleep. So she tells Billy, like, hey, just tell Jacob I'm going to be at the beach. Have him meet me. There's a lot of filler going on, so let's fast forward to the beach and see what Bella has to say to Jacob. She tells him that she finally remembers that part of the story, and she knows what he is. She also adds that people are hunting you. You all have got to be careful. And Jacob's like, we already know that. We already know. And she's like, can you try not to be a werewolf? Like, please just try. And Jacob's like, do you honestly think I have a choice? And do you know what makes me so mad, Bella? Is that you're a hypocrite. You're terrified of me, yet you hung out with the Cullens? And Bella says, why would I not be terrified of a monster? Jacob looks at her and says, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm not the right kind of monster for you. We're just not as great as the Cullens, I guess. And Bella's like, it's not what you are, it's what you do. You're hurting innocent people. He screams at her saying, what is that supposed to mean? What are you talking about? And guys, Edward's voice has entered the chat saying, don't push him, you need to calm him down right now. Bella takes a deep breath and she says, it's not that you're a wolf that bothers me. It's just that you hurt people. Jacob is now laughing. Complete 180 in his mood. He's laughing and he lifts her up in a big bear hug. And he says, you don't mind that I'm a big dog? That's fine, because we don't hurt anyone, Bella. This is perfect. And I'm so sorry that I called you a hypocrite. He also brings up what we mentioned earlier in the book is that Sam's group calls themselves the Protectors. And that is what the wolves are doing in the woods. They are protecting the town. And Bella says, protecting them from what? Jacob goes on saying, we are protecting them from our one sworn enemy, vampires. It's the reason that we exist, because they do. I thought you would realize this. And Bella says, are you talking about Laurent? I don't think you understand how dangerous he is, Jacob. And Jacob says, oh, that was so easy to handle. And guys, this is the moment that we learn that Laurent has been destroyed. The werewolves destroyed Laurent. He didn't run to Victoria. He didn't tell Victoria that he saw Bella because he never got away. Which means we need to move Laurent to our deceased pile. So let's join James, shall we? Jacob then tells Bella that there's another reason that he doesn't need to be around her. And it's because when he becomes angry or upset or mad, he transforms into a wolf, and that's out of his control. Jacob also says, like, you don't need to be stressed anymore about the vampires because we're going to take care of this. Bella is not paying attention. I'm gonna be so for real. She's not paying attention at all because she's focusing on the fact that Jacob said, we're going to take care of this. Since Laurent has been destroyed for a week and hikers are still disappearing, meaning Victoria is near and close and her main target is Bella. Bella actually brings up this point saying, like, if you guys got rid of Laurent, there are still hikers missing, so I don't know if y'all are actually taking care of it right now. And Jacob's like, hold your roll. There were two of them. There were a guy and a girl. We handled the guy. Now we just need to find that girl again. She's real speedy. And ding, 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 Bella was correct. Victoria has been around Forks recently. Bella then explains to Jacob, Victoria is here for me. And she explains the whole James ordeal about how Victoria wants revenge for her mate. And Bella says, but Victoria doesn't understand that things aren't like that anymore. Edward doesn't think that I'm special. He's left and he's not coming back, but she's still after me. Jacob is furious and fuming right now. He's taking some deep breaths because he's like, I gotta keep my anger in check a little bit so that I don't transform, but I need to call a meeting immediately. And he actually doesn't have to leave her because now that he's a part of the pack, all of the wolves can hear his thoughts and he can hear theirs, which he says is slightly embarrassing because there are no secrets at all. Bella tells him that none of this really freaks her out because Edward's the exact same way and he can listen to people's thoughts because that's like a special power of his. Let's learn some more wolfy background, shall we? Sam is the alpha of the pack, so you have to do whatever he says. If he tells you to do something, you have to listen. That's why when Bella wanted to talk to Jacob alone, he had to look at Sam and get Sam's approval before he went with Bella. We also learned that when Sam changed, he was the first one in this pack. So he was changing alone, whereas everyone else within their pack had each other and Sam. Sam was by himself. Jacob tells Bella that she has to go to this meeting because they need to hear this story firsthand from her. And obviously she knows more about vampires than anyone else. Jacob also asks if Victoria has any powers, which Bella isn't positive, but she doesn't think so because Edward never mentioned it. Now Jacob notices that she says he didn't mention it. So Jacob's like, oh, you mean Ed? I'm so sorry. I know that you don't want to talk about him. Scratch that. Pretend I wasn't about to say his name. I know you don't like hearing his name. And Bella is like, wait, you noticed that? You noticed that whenever I hear his name, I kind of shut down a little bit? I didn't realize you paid that close attention to me. Jacob says, I pay attention and I know you're still unhappy. Do you think that maybe you're better off, that this was for the best? She interrupts him and says, no. Ending that conversation. It's time for a wolfy meeting. Everybody is yelling at Jacob right now, being like, what did you do? Why did you tell her? What did you tell her? This is breaking our treaty. This is breaking our rules. And Jacob just shrugs, being like, she guessed. I didn't have to tell her anything. Somebody literally calls her a leech lover. Leech lover. That someone, I believe, is Paul, by the way. I'm so sorry to Paul. Paul is not featured. We will see him more in the next book. He'll have a picture in our cast for the next video. But Paul calls her a leech lover, and oh, that does not make Jacob happy. In fact, Jacob screams, saying no one needs to talk about her. And when he does this, Paul is physically shaking and trembling, and he can't calm down. And the book says that he explodes and a wolf takes his place. Not just like any wolf, it's a wolf that's 5 times his normal size. So it's big. At the same time that Paul just turned into a wolf, Jacob starts sprinting towards Paul and he also turns into a wolf, but he has brown reddish fur. Sam is yelling, Bella, do not move. Jared, Embry, take her to Emily right now. Get her out of here. We learn that Emily right down here is Sam's fiance. And the boys tell Bella not to stare at Emily's face because Emily has 3 scratch lines down her face, like completely down one side. When Emily meets her, she looks at Bella and she's like, oh, you're the vampire girl. And Bella's like, oh, you're the wolf girl. Emily laughs and then she goes back to what she was doing, which she was making breakfast for the pack. After a little while, the front door opens, Sam enters, and him and Emily have a moment. Bella notes that they greet each other with so much love, it kind of makes her uncomfortable, like she's interrupting something. Jacob enters the room, as does Paul, and Paul has a huge scratch down his forearm, but it's fading pretty quickly as if it is healing immediately. Now that everyone has settled down, we are eating breakfast, we're having some muffins. Jacob tells everyone what the redhead, aka Victoria, is up to and that she's after Bella. And Jared says, oh, that's great, now we have bait. And before anyone can say anything, Jacob has picked up a can opener and chucks it at Jared's head. And right before it hits him square in the forehead, he catches it with his wolfy senses. Sam tells Bella that Jacob is thinking it's probably best for Bella to stay at La Push, but ultimately the decision is yours, not his to make. Bella tells him that she doesn't want to leave Victoria anywhere else, and then she looks at Jacob and she's like, you'll be careful, right? And the whole room is like hooting and hollering over this. So Bella spends the day at La Push. Charlie ends up going over there for a March Madness game, and Charlie is so confused. He's like, hold up. You told me Jacob was involved with really, really bad people. Now you're hanging out with him again? You're gonna need to help me out here because I cannot fill in any blanks. And Bella just says, I don't know what teenage boys are up to, but he seems completely fine now. I think it was just a misunderstanding. And then she changes the subject to be like, I also met Emily today. What happened to her? And Charlie's like, oh, what a sweet, sweet girl. He says that she got mauled by a bear and that when it happened, Sam was very distraught over that. Obviously, when the town is talking about bear attacks, it means a wolf. We will kind of discuss more of this later, but you guys can probably put 2 and 2 together. When Bella went to bed that night, she couldn't stop thinking about how Jacob called her a hypocrite. And honestly, he's not wrong. Because even though Edward wasn't a killer, even when he fell off the wagon and became a vigilante, it didn't matter because he was Edward. She would not have cared what he had done because she loved him so much. And nothing could have kept her away from him. And then she shakes her head at this thought, thinking, well, love is irrational. It makes you do crazy things. And the more you love someone, the less sense that it actually makes. Her dream that night was a lot different than normal. They were in the woods and she was holding hands with Emily as they stared at the tree line waiting. It's now spring break. They have not caught Victoria yet. Bella is at work and Mike asks her, like, are you dating the person from La Push? And Bella says, well, not in the technical sense. He's my best friend. And Mike mutters under his breath, wow. Girls are so cruel. Later that night, she goes to La Push. They're in the garage. in the rabbit car. Jacob reaches over to hold Bella's hand and he is burning up, but this is normal because the temperature of werewolves run high. We also learn that Quil is about to be going through the transformation process. Jacob tells Bella that the hardest part of being a werewolf is feeling out of control, feeling that at any minute if something sets him off, he's done. He becomes a werewolf and who knows what happens from there. And here's a little bit of perspective that Stephanie Meyer wrote on her website. Them sitting in the rabbit in the garage, if Jacob were to get angry and turn, he would either severely injure her or kill her just by crushing her because of how big he would become. That is what she's talking about when she says he feels out of control. We also learned that some of the guys in the pack are a little jealous of Jacob because everything comes so easily to him, but there's a reason for that. Jacob explains that both of his great-grandfathers on the paternal and the maternal side were a part of the last pack. There were 3 people in this pack, by the way. It was his paternal great-grandfather, his maternal great-grandfather, and Sam's great-grandfather. So it was inevitable for this to happen to Jacob. And while Sam has the legacy of the first pack on one side of his bloodline, Jacob has it on both. This will come into play within the next book, but especially in Breaking Dawn. So please take note of this. Jacob honestly is over talking about this. So he's like, please just tell me something I don't know. And Bella says, do you remember when you touched that scar on my hand, the one that was so cold? That was because of James. And Jacob freezes in that moment. He's like, he bit you? I don't understand. How are you okay right now? And Bella says, well, Edward stopped the transformation from happening. Jacob is bugging out over this, like to the point where Bella's like, please calm down, please breathe. We are in an enclosed space together. Please just breathe. But the only thing she can think of is like to distract him with all the other vampire powers. And so she's just kind of explaining what all the other Cullens can do. While she is talking about the Cullens, it sends her into a panic attack. She's gripping her chest because talking about them hurt so badly because she loved all of them with her whole heart. As I said, it's spring break, and so Bella really has nothing to distract herself with while she's at La Push, so she's very bored. And she would just wander up and down the beach for hours and hours and hours until Jacob could come hang out with her. But Jacob was really busy because he was with the pack trying to find Victoria, so this could be over and done with. She's walking up and down the beach. Bella's thinking to herself how she's getting so much deeper and deeper with Jacob without meaning to. And this sends her into another panic attack where she just crawls into a ball on the beach until Jacob finds her. He can see that she is stressing out. Obviously, she's in a ball on the beach. And he doesn't think that it's because of him. He thinks it's because of Victoria. So he's like, you know what? I will take tomorrow off and we will hang out together. And do you guys remember the activity that Bella really wanted to do at the beginning of this book? And since they're at La Push and it's here anyway, they might as well. Do you remember? Cliff jumping. Yes, that is what they have planned for tomorrow. And Jacob agrees to this, by the way. Like, he doesn't fight her on this. He's like, yep, sounds great. It's a date. Bella goes to bed. She wakes up early the next day and she's so excited. And she keeps saying to herself, this is a date with Jacob, but really it's a date with Edward because I'm going to hear him today. But when Bella gets to Jacob's house, Billy tells her that Jacob had to go with Sam today because they got a new lead to try and find Victoria. And Bella is antsy. She cannot sit still. She is so worried for Jacob, but also she was so excited to hear Edward that this was such a huge letdown for her. And the only solution Bella has to make her happy at this moment in time is to look up at the cliffs and go, I can walk up there easy peasy. So she is going to go cliff diving or cliff jumping, whatever y'all want to call it, by herself. Also, she goes to the very top. If you remember from the beginning of this book, Jacob specifically says, yes, whenever we go, we will not jump from that high. She's like, screw it. If I'm doing the dang thing, I am fully doing it. And so she's going to the very top to jump. And the reason that she chose to go from this height is because she wanted to feel like she was flying. And finally, she heard the voice. Don't do this. Please don't do this. Please, for me, stop. And then Bella flings herself off of the cliff. And Bella was really proud of herself when she lands in the water until a current hits her and she's just being flung around like a rag doll in the freezing cold water. And she keeps hearing Edward. Edward is sounding like Dory from Finding Nemo saying, just keep swimming, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. As I said, the water is freezing, so her limbs are becoming numb, which is making it harder for her to fight against the current. Edward is like, just a little more, please. But Bella thinks to herself, I don't want to fight anymore. She thought of all the cliches of seeing your life flash before your eyes, but that's not what she saw. She saw Edward, and it was mortifying than any memory she ever had. So why on earth would she fight this when she was finally happy? The current felt like it pushed her into a rock. Water was going down her throat, and something was pulling her further and further away from Edward. Bella's last thought was, goodbye. I love you. Talking to Edward. And at that exact moment, her head actually breaks the surface, and this is very disorienting for Bella because she thought she was sinking to the ocean floor when in reality she was going up and getting her head out of water. Now, obviously, she's not doing this by herself. Someone just pulled her out of the water. And there's a voice shouting, breathe, just breathe. And it's not Edward, it's Jacob who just pulled her out. And also he is performing CPR at this moment in time. Sam is also there looking at Bella saying, I think she's breathing, I think she's breathing, I think she's okay. And finally, Bella opens her eyes. And Jacob exhales and he's like, okay, I'm gonna take you home. It's okay, no big deal. And Bella is really out of it. I mean, clearly, she almost just drowned. And her eyes kind of dissociate a little bit. And so she just kind of looks off into the water. And she sees something bright orange in the water, almost like flames on top, which is really confusing to her because wouldn't a fire be put out when it's in water? But she doesn't think anything of it because she's so out of it right now. But please take note of that. Jacob finally gets her to her car and he's like, why did you do it? I've been looking for you forever. What happened? And she doesn't answer him. She's like, did you get Victoria? He shakes his head and says that she lost him along the way, but that's why he doubled back to the beach to try and find Bella because it looked like she was going to the water. Every day in spring break, Bella has been going down to the beach, so he was afraid that she was going to get her. And we also learned that while Jacob was going to the beach to try and find Bella to protect her from Victoria, the rest of the pack had to go to the hospital because Harry Clearwater just had a heart attack and it's not looking good right now. Bella goes to sleep that night and for the first time in a while, she's having a great dream. She's having a bright vision of Phoenix, Arizona, the sun, a treehouse, a wall of mirror, a flame on black water, a set on stage, a balcony at night, a girl talking to herself while she's on the balcony. Obviously, that's alluding to Romeo and Juliet. And then she wonders, what would Juliet have done if Romeo just left her? If Romeo had chosen Rosalind over her, what would Juliet have done? Would she have chosen Paris? Would Paris have taken care of her? And what if Paris loved her and she loved him, just not in the same way that Paris loved her? If you can't tell, Bella is comparing her life to Romeo and Juliet. Obviously, Bella would be Juliet, Edward would be Romeo, and Paris would be Jacob. The front door opens and it's Billy, and Billy has been crying and he tells them that Harry did not make it, which means we need to add another person to the deceased pile. We also learn that Charlie is still at the hospital with Sue, who was Harry's wife, and they are trying to plan the funeral arrangements. Jacob says that he will drive her home. I don't know if I specified this, but instead of Jacob taking her home after she almost drowned, he just brought her back to his house. Thus why Billy is walking in the front door. On the drive home, Bella reflects to when she thought that she wanted Jacob to be like her brother, but she thinks that all she was after in that moment of time was just a claim to him. Because when he's acting this way or he's being so close to her, it doesn't feel brotherly anymore. And in this moment, she's honestly thinking about giving Jacob a chance to potentially committing to him and being open about how she's still hearing Edward's voice. Thinking, would it be so wrong to try and make Jacob happy? And because he's Jacob and he's been paying such close attention to Bella and he's so in tune with Bella, he stops the car and brings her into a big hug, saying, I know you don't feel the same way I do, but I don't mind. And she's sitting so close to him right now that if she turns her head, she'd be kissing his shoulder. And she knew what would happen if she did that. She knew what would progress from that action. And she thinks like, could I do that? Could I betray my absent heart in order to try and save this pathetic life of mine? And then she hears Edward's voice say, be happy. And this makes her freeze. A really hard whoosh goes against the back of the truck and Jacob now freezes. And Jacob says, oh my gosh, there's a vampire here. I can smell it. There is a vampire here. He puts the truck in reverse and he's trying to get Bella out of there, but Bella sees a black Mercedes and she yells, stop. That's Carlisle's car. Stop. Pull over. Please pull over. That's Carlisle. And Jacob's like, I'm not stopping. You are in danger. I'm not stopping. And Bella is screaming, pull over. I will be fine. That is Carlisle. They won't hurt me. And he says, there's a vampire in your house and you want to go back? Of course I want to go back. So take me back. And he says, no. Take yourself back. Treaty or no treaty, that is my enemy in there. And I'll have to tell Sam about this because this changes things. I can't be on their territory. He says, bye, and I quote, I hope you don't die. Then he leaves. But before she fully walks in, she thinks to herself, oh my God, what if this is a trick? What if this is a sneaky, sneaky trick? And because she's having this thought, she reflects back to something Jacob said earlier. He said that when they lost Victoria, he had to double back to the beach in case she went swimming. And it clicks in her head that when she kind of dissociated a bit and she looked into the water and she saw that flame, that orange flame on top of the water, it wasn't fire. It was Victoria. It was Victoria's hair. Meaning that she was that close to Bella while she was drowning and Victoria was in the same water as her. That is how close she got to getting Bella. And so now Bella is fully convinced that this is indeed a trick and she's like, do I actually go in? And on the other hand, she's like, that's Carlisle's car. I know that's Carlisle's car and I want to see them. So she takes a deep breath and she opens her door and the light flickered on even though Bella had not hit the switch and there was someone there waiting for her. Do you guys know who it was? Do you want to know? Let me tell you because I love it and I love her. It was Alice. Alice is in Bella's living room and all Alice says is Bella in a confused yet relieved tone. And Bella really doesn't say anything. She literally runs into Alice's arms and is hugging her so tightly, but also sobbing in Alice's arms, like hardcore sobbing her eyes out. And Alice is holding her saying, do you want to explain to me how you're still alive right now? Alice doesn't really let Bella respond. Instead, she pauses and then she says, I told Edward this would happen. And he just didn't believe me. He said, Bella promised she wouldn't do anything stupid or reckless and look where we are now. He told me not to be looking into your future because we'd already done too much damage. But just because I'm not looking doesn't mean I won't see. Bella, I promise I wasn't keeping tabs on you. I'm just so attuned to you that when I saw you jump and I didn't see you come up from the water, I had to see for myself. Did you even think of Charlie? Did you even think of my brother? Do you have any idea what Edward... Bella interrupts her and she's like, stop right there. This was recreational fun. Haven't you ever heard of cliff diving? This was all in good fun. And Alice is so confused and she's like, did someone pull you out? And Bella's like, yeah, Jacob did. And when she says Jacob's name, Alice leans in and she's like, you reek. What is that smell? Bella then explains that Jacob is a werewolf. And Alice then says, I've never met anyone who is more prone to life-threatening idiocy. Bella's like, well, it's a good thing the werewolves are here because if not, Laurent would have gotten me. And Alice is like, hold up, Laurent? What do you mean? You need to back up and explain, please. And so Bella does. And once Bella's done explaining everything, Alice is like, us leaving didn't do anything good for you, did it? Bella literally laughs saying, that was the point, wasn't it? Y'all leaving wasn't even for my benefit. But please don't leave me again, Alice. Please, please, like spend the night or something. And Alice says that she won't leave Bella tonight and that even though she nearly drowned today, that's not why she's looking rough and looking like a mess. Like she just looks bad. The phone rings and Bella expects it to be Charlie at the hospital, but it's actually Jacob. And so when she answers, she's like, I'm fine. I told you it wasn't. And he interrupts her saying, got it, bye. And he hangs up on Bella. And Bella's like, well, this is gonna be an issue. Charlie comes home during this moment and he's visibly sad because his best friend just passed away. But also when he sees Alice, he is ecstatic. Bella falls asleep on the couch and when she wakes up, she hears Charlie and Alice talking. So Bella pretends to be asleep a little longer so she can eavesdrop. And Alice asks Charlie, how bad was it? And this is where we figure out what happened between the months of September to January. Charlie tells Alice that he's never felt more hopeless in his life. He thought he was gonna have to hospitalize Bella. Bella wouldn't eat anything and Renee actually came down to try and get Bella to go to Jacksonville with her. And Bella refused. And by refusing, Bella threw a temper tantrum, throwing all of her stuff everywhere, her clothes, screaming, crying, like a full-on tantrum. And because of this, she made it seem to Charlie and Renee that she was getting better. She would go to school, she would do her homework, she would sit in the living room. She would talk when people were talking to her, but she was like an empty shell of a human being. She wasn't Bella. Charlie goes on saying that Bella broke all of her CDs. She didn't want to watch anything on TV. And Charlie says it finally clicked to me what she was doing. She was avoiding every single thing that reminded her of Edward. And I still hear her screaming in the middle of the night. He then looks at Alice and tells her, it's not your fault. You were always a great friend to her. And Bella's been happier since she's been hanging out with Jacob. He's being a good friend to her as well. But I can still see the pain in Bella's eyes. It doesn't look like someone left her. It looks like she's grieving somebody, like they died. Charlie hesitates, looks at Alice, and he goes, I'm really happy that you're here, but I'm worried what your visit is going to do to Bella. But who knows, maybe it'll be good for her. He has one final question with Alice, and he asks this with so much anger in his tone. He asks, is he coming back too? Alice shrugs her shoulders and says, Edward doesn't even know that I'm here. Charlie snorts, saying, well, that's something at least. I hope he's having a good time. And Alice, with steel in her voice, says, I wouldn't make any assumptions, Charlie. Bella yawns really loudly on the couch to like make them think she's just now waking up. And Charlie has to leave because he needs to go plan the funeral arrangements. And Alice and Bella just talk all day, never about Alice and them leaving, but just what the family is now up to. So let's play a quick round of keeping up with the Cullens. Carlisle is working night shifts at Ithaca, and then he's also teaching part-time at Cornell. Jasper is actually taking classes at Cornell at the same time, and I believe he is studying philosophy. Esme is restoring a 17th century house. Alice is doing some research on what she learned last spring from James. So basically she's just trying to fill in all the blank space she has about her life before she was a vampire. She's actually discovered quite a bit. She discovered what asylum she actually stayed at. She discovered what her name is, and Alice's name was Mary Alice Brandon, and she was born in Biloxi. Also knows that her sister Cynthia had a daughter, and her daughter is still living in Biloxi, which would be Alice's niece. They talked all day. Alice spent the night again. When Charlie leaves the next day, Alice is like, well, what do you want to do today? And Bella normally goes to see Jacob, but obviously she's not doing that today. So Bella's like, you know what, let's do some chores. We'll just keep on talking. So Alice just talked to Bella while she was doing all of her chores, and eventually the doorbell rang. Alice groans and says, I have a fairly good guess about who that is. And Bella stops in her tracks and goes, guess? You can't see who it is? And this is where we learn that Alice cannot see the wolves in her vision. That's why she had no clue that Bella got pulled out of the water. After Alice says this, she does leave, but she tells Bella that she will be coming back. So don't worry, she just doesn't think it's a good idea for her and Jacob to be in the same room together. Which is fair. And you know what? Sure enough, Alice's guess was right, because it was Jacob. And in the car are Jared and Embry, and they refuse to go in with Jacob. Like literally they're being little babies, shaking their heads like, not going in there if a vampire was in there. And this irritates Bella because Jacob literally won't even walk into the house. Jacob is like stretching his neck, scoping out the foyer before he walks through the door. And Jacob's like, can I talk to you alone? And Bella responds with, sure, come on in. What do you want? What is your problem right now? Jacob just says, I don't like being here. Bella looks at him and says, then I'm sorry you had to come down here. Why don't you just tell me why you're here and then you can leave? Jacob asks, one of the Cullens is staying with you? Yeah, Alice is. Okay, how long is she here for? Bella quickly says, it's an open invitation. Jacob then tells her that the wolves don't watch the lands that have Cullens on it, so the only place she'll be safe is La Push. And Bella's like, I've already told Alice about Victoria. I'll be fine. Jacob then says, are the rest coming back? No. Okay, then that's all I had to ask. Bella then sternly says, well then go run along to Sam and tell him every single thing I just told you so that he can be satisfied that the scary monsters aren't staying for long. Jacob starts to leave and she like fully like schlumps like, oh my gosh. He then turns around and he says, I did it again and I'm so sorry. I broke my promise to you again. And Bella says, can't I be both of your friends at the same time? Why do I have to choose? Jacob then tells her no, like, you can't be both of our friends. And then Bella says, but you'll wait, right? Like, you'll still be my friend even though I love Alice too, right? Jacob takes a second to process that question. And then he changes his tone a little bit and says, yes, I will still be your friend no matter what. I promise. He hugs her and then he says, ugh, you reek. And Bella's like, people need to stop telling me that I stink. I'm gonna get a complex at this point because it's not even me. He lifts his hand to brush her cheek and then he brings the other one up so that he's cupping her face. And Bella's thinking to herself, oh no, oh no, oh no, no, I haven't made a decision yet. Please don't make the decision for me. Oh no, 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 no. And as he starts to move his face closer to hers, she is saved by the bell because the phone starts to ring. And even though it's Bella's house, Jacob decides to pick up. Jacob answers the phone saying, Swan Residence. Pause. Whoever's on the other line is speaking currently. And then Jacob says, he's not here. He's at a funeral. And then hangs up the phone very aggressively. And under his breath, he goes, filthy bloodsucker. And Bella gasps, saying, who did you just hang up on? In my house, on my phone. And Jacob replies with, he hung up on me. It was Carlisle Cullen, and he didn't ask for you, Bella. He asked for Charlie. Bella's beginning to go off on Jacob because she's like, you had no right to do that. But then she notices that he freezes for some reason, and she turns around, and it's Alice. Alice just says, Edward. And Bella literally passes out when she says this. And Alice is like, Bella, get it together. I need to talk to you. And Jacob is in the corner being like, what did you do to her? And Alice is like, I didn't do anything. Clearly, you watched me the whole time. Alice then takes out her small silver cell phone and she calls Rosalie and says, I need to talk to Carlisle right now. But then we hear, why would you do that, Rosalie? You're literally wrong. She's absolutely fine. Yeah, well, it's a bit late for that, Rose. You know what? Save your remorse for someone who believes it. We don't have any idea what Rosalie is currently telling Alice, but Alice is pissed. Alice sinks to her knees and goes, that wasn't Carlisle. That was Edward, and he thinks that you're dead. Phone conversation Alice just had clicks into place for Bella. Bella asked, Rosalie told him I jumped off that cliff, didn't she? Alice says yes. And in her defense, she did truly believe that that was what was happening, but she had no right to go tell Edward this. Okay, commentary side note. Stephanie Meyer actually wrote Rosalie's POV when she called Edward, and I think that she submitted it for like a fan fiction contest because she was like, no one's gonna know it's me, ha ha ha. But she did do that to try and fill in some gaps and also kind of create a little bit more sympathy for Rosalie, because I do think that a lot of people just looked at her as a very one-sided, not complex character, when in reality, like, there are a lot of different facets to Rosalie. I was like, Alice, it's okay. Even though he thinks that it was my funeral, if Edward calls back, we can just tell him it was a mistake. And Alice is like, you don't understand. He's not gonna call back. He already threw his phone away. It was in a trash can in South America. And Bella is like, what? How do you even know that? And apparently the reason they know that is because they tried to get a hold of Edward and someone pulled his phone out of a trash can and answered. Alice tells Bella that he's going to Italy. Now let's go to the very, very beginning of this book to a conversation that Edward had with Bella while they were watching the movie Romeo and Juliet. He was saying that he needed a contingency plan last March in case James succeeded. And his contingency plan was going to the Volturi to ask to be destroyed. The Volturi are in Italy. Sounds like it's time for his contingency plan right now. I feel like his contingency plan is in full effect. Yikes. Bella is now screaming, saying, this doesn't make any sense. He left me. He told me that he didn't want me, so what difference does it make if I'm dead or alive? And Alice shrugs, saying, I don't think he planned on having to outlive you by that many years. Jacob is still here, by the way, and he has inserted himself in the middle of Alice and Bella is like, get out of my way. Alice is ignoring where Jacob is standing. It's just like, I saw what Edward's doing. He is definitely going to the Volturi, and I don't know what their decision's gonna be. I will know as soon as the choice has been made, but I know that he is going to ask. Alice says they could say no. Arrow is really fond of our family because Carlisle worked with them for a couple of 100 years. But if they say no, Edward's gonna do something drastic that will force their hand to destroy him. But that gives us more time to try and stop him. Emphasis on try. Like, honestly, there's not a lot of hope in this, but I'm willing to try and stop him if you are. And Bella doesn't even really process this. She just says, okay, let's go. Let me grab my passport. We're leaving. Alice stops her real quick and says, I just need you to know that if we're too late and we fail, I will be considered an accomplice in this. I won't be able to save you. So if he goes down and we're there, we're both going down too. Bella says, that's what's keeping us here. I will go alone if you don't want to. And Alice is like, no. I didn't say I'm not going. That is my brother and I'm going to try and save him. I just needed you to be aware of the consequences. Jacob finally speaks and he says, I won't let anything happen to Charlie. Bella nods her head and she writes a letter to Charlie. Alice told me Edward is in trouble. There's a family emergency. I gotta go. Feel free to ground me when I'm back. And Jacob tries to get Bella not to go, but she just looks at Jacob and says, please take care of Charlie for me. I appreciate it. And he's literally begging, like begging her, don't go, don't do this. No. She kisses his hand, says, I got to go. Thank you. And guys, it is now a race against the clock. They get on an airplane and luckily they're able to get the last flight. But the reason they do this is because it's faster than running, driving, being on a boat. This is their fastest option to get to Italy. And Alice is taking some phone calls during this time. We hear her tell Jasper, tell Emmett, no, don't interfere. That will just make it worse. She continues on saying, Bella is really the only chance that we have. Please, Jasper, prepare everyone because the odds are not good. I'm going to try to make it home to you. And I love you. Alice hangs up the phone. She looks at Bella and she sighs saying, I hate lying to him. Alice explains that if Emmett or Jasper or Carlisle try and stop Edward, he will only work faster to beat them. He will hear their thoughts, and just because they're all thinking Bella's alive, doesn't mean that they're not lying to him to try and save him. So the best way to get to Edward is through you, Bella. You are going to have to sprint to get to him and stop him and let him see that you're still alive. All right, let's do some Volturi background since we are about to see them soon. The Volturi originally started with 3 members. They're right here at the top. We have Arrow, Marcus, and Caius, and they never leave where they are at. They do not leave at all. Over time, they actually picked up 2 more, making it 5 of them. They have guards, and they specifically pick people like Alice or Edward that have powers. Thus, these 2 down here, there are more guards in total, but these are the ones I printed because they seem the most important. And also, this family is over 3,000 years old, and the reason they're compared to the royal family is because they make sure that everyone upholds the rules. They're in charge of making sure that the vampire rules are followed. And when Bella hears this, she's like, rules? There's rules to being a vampire? And Alice is like, well, there's one rule. We don't tell humans that vampires exist. If the Volturi tell Edward, no, we will not destroy you, and he wants to raise their hand, he would need to break the vampire rule. And it wouldn't have to be like a one person, like he needs to break it by a lot. Timing update, we are getting off the plane. Alice is keeping up with Edward, and currently he's trying to figure out how he wants to ask the Volturi to destroy him. So we haven't even gotten to the Volturi meeting yet. And the reason she's seeing this so clearly is because it's happening right now in real time. More time has passed. Bella has fallen asleep because this is a long travel day. Long. They're literally going from Washington to Italy. She wakes Bella up and Alice says, okay, the Volturi have made their decision. They're deliberating right now, but they are going to choose to tell him no. This is giving us more time. Bella actually asks her about her old visions, about how she saw Bella as a vampire. And Bella says, why don't you just turn me? Like, why not? Wouldn't that just make life easier? Like, just turn me. Alice says, believe me, I find it ridiculous that no one has turned you at this point either. Like, honestly, if I had a choice, I would do it right here, right now. And Bella's like, please do. And Alice says, well, honestly, I was joking. I don't think I could control myself. I don't think I could be the one to turn you. Okay, y'all, more time has passed. Bella falls asleep yet again. Alice has to wake her up yet again. And she says, the Volturi have finally told Edward their decision. They said no officially. And now Edward is trying to figure out how he wants to raise their hand. He's going through some very chaotic options. One of the options being like just throwing a Buick against the wall in the middle of town. But it seems that he's focusing on the decision just to walk out at the brightest point of the day and show the town that he shimmers and shines. Which Alice says is the best option for them because it gives them a little more time to get to him. Alice is essentially in Grand Theft Auto mode right now, and she steals a bright yellow vehicle, the exact same one in the movie, so snaps to that. And she has another vision and she realizes, oh my gosh, it's St. Marcus Day. The amount of people in the square, there's no way that they're not going to be able to destroy him if he steps into the sun in front of all of those people. St. Marcus Day is a holiday where in the past, the humans believe that Marcus of the Volturi, or Saint Marcus, drove all the vampires out of the city using garlic and crosses, which was the Volturi's way of putting out little superstitions and fake facts about vampires. As they are getting closer and closer to their destination, Alice looks at Bella and says, you're gonna be on your own as soon as I get you close enough because I can't run with you. It's too bright. I will also expose vampires if I do that. So I'm gonna get you as close as I can and you're gonna sprint. And guys, we are now back to the very beginning of the book. Bella is sprinting, but she's not running to save herself. She's running to save something so much more special and important to her. And it's not easy. There are people everywhere. In fact, The best way for her to get near Edward is to run through the fountain because people aren't standing in the fountain. So she's like hurtling over this thing, trying to get to him. She sees him step out and she's hollering. He doesn't hear her because he's so determined to do what he's wanting to do. And right before he fully steps out, she lunges at him and pushes him back. And she lunges at him with such great force that if he didn't catch her, she would be on the ground. She is now telling him, Edward, we have to move. Please, let's move. We need to move. And Edward's just saying, oh my God, Carlisle was right. No, Edward, like we need to move. We need to move. I can't believe how quick that was. I didn't feel a thing. And then he quotes, I'm gonna look at my notes at this. He says, death that hath sucked the honey of thy breath hath had no power yet upon thy beauty. This is a line from Romeo and Juliet when Romeo is in the tomb. Edward then whispers, you smell the same as always. Maybe this is hell after all, but I don't care. And Bella screams, I'm not dead and neither are you, but you need to move, please. And Edward finally snaps into consciousness and he's like, oh my God. And he whips them away to another wall where he's completely in the shadows. And her back is now against the wall, but she sees two men walking towards them behind Edward. And Edward says, thanks, gentlemen, I appreciate it, but I won't be requiring your services anymore. Please say thank you to your masters for me. And one of the Volturi guards, who I don't have pictured up here, but his name is Felix, so imagine if Felix is up here somewhere. He says, I think we should probably take this conversation somewhere else, a little less crowded, if you will. And Edward, not even looking at them, still looking at Bella, says, that's not necessary. I haven't broken any rules. We're good. And the other guard that is with Felix says, we just need to get out of the sunlight. Let's just change, go into the shadows. No big deal. Edward then nods and says, okay, I'll be right behind you. Bella, why don't you go enjoy the festival? Felix, the guard, says, no, bring the girl. Yeah, I don't think so. And Edward is prepared to fight. But before Edward can fight them, Alice pops up and goes, gentlemen, I don't think this is proper conversation to have in front of a lady. The arguing stops and then they hear another voice scream, enough. And we learn that Jane has now entered the chat. Now, in the movie, Jane is played by Dakota Fanning, and I would not change that for the world. I think that she does a great job at this role. But in the book, she's described as looking almost childlike, and they think that she's a boy at first. Whenever Bella sees Jane, she thinks that she's a boy because her hair is like very choppy, it's dark, and she looks completely different than Dakota Fanning. But again, I wouldn't change that for the world. I think she did great at that role. But just know that her appearance is a little more eerie in the book because of how young Jane looks. And Edward pushes Bella forward so that she is right next to Alice's hip, and then he walks to the other side so that Bella is smack dab in between them. And Edward has his arm around Bella and he's not letting go. Edward is looking at Alice like, what happened? And Alice's like, well, she did jump, but it was just recreational fun. It wasn't for anything bad. And Edward's like, recreational fun? What are you talking about? Well, it's a long story, but she's into extreme sports recently. They are all walking towards an open hole in the street, and it's a hole that's like a complete drop down. So Alice goes first and Edward says, you're okay, Alice is gonna catch you. And so she drops and Alice indeed catches her. And after Edward jumps in as well, he is back to holding on to Bella so tightly. This thought that Bella has right now is completely different from the movies. Bella's thinking to herself, it feels like he wants me again. And that's really all I need because at least I can be with him for a little bit before I die. Honestly, that's better than a long life. The reason that that is so drastically different from the movie is Bella just saved Edward. Yes. In the book, they haven't talked. They haven't done their big little kiss that happens in the movie. She has no clue why he was wanting to have himself destroyed because she full on believed him in the woods when he told her that he didn't want her. She just thought it was like out of guilt or something like that. But in the movie, they have their moment. They talk a little bit. They reunite. And so while she's walking to the Volturi in the movie, she's not stressing and having these thoughts of like, does he still want me? I'm really confused. Like, why is he sending me mixed signals? I really want him though. So at least I'm content and I'll die happy with Edward. That, in my opinion, is one of the biggest changes from the book to the movie. And I stand by that. They keep going deeper and deeper underground. Her teeth are literally chattering right now because of how cold it is down there. And Edward sees this. So he's like, oh, let me take my hand away. And she's like, no, please leave it there. And so he's moving it up and down to try and create some kind of friction, but it is frigid down there. And also when I say they're going deeper and deeper underground, I mean that they're on an elevator taking them deeper and deeper underground, by the way. Once the elevator stops and they're on the bottom floor, they end up going down this really long hallway with like iron bars they have to open and go through. And then another long hallway with this huge set of wooden doors. And Bella's like, thank goodness we're finally there. And Edward, on the other hand, stiffens. Like, he's like, oh no. When they enter this place, there is a human down there with green eyes, and she's like their secretary of sorts. I think her name is like Gianna. And Bella is like thinking to herself, why is there a human down here? If they want to keep vampires hidden from humans, why is there a human down here? We will talk about that later. No one fret. I'm meeting another vampire named Alec. Alec is Jane's brother, and he also has powers. Alec looks at them and says, you were asked to bring back 1 and you bring back 2.5? They walk into this new room, and the first vampire they see is real creepy looking. He has long black hair that Bella at first thinks is the hood to his cloak, but no. That is his hair. And she compares his complexion to onion skin. That's nasty. That's what she compares him to, though. He has deep red eyes just like the other, except they're hazy and milky, and she wonders if his vision is impaired because of this. This creepy vampire looks at Edward and goes, aren't you just so happy we didn't give you what you wished for yesterday, Edward? Edward says, yes, Arrow, and he tightens his grip on Bella's waist. So the main creepy vampire, his name is Arrow. And Arrow says, oh, I love a happy ending, but I want the whole story. He then looks at Alice and he's like, oh my goodness, Alice? I know we haven't been formally introduced, but I feel like I already know you from what your brother showed me. Arrow explains that he has some of Edward's talents, but he's a little more limited than Edward. And Edward cuts in and says, Arrow's just being modest. His power is much stronger than mine. That is because while Edward can read anybody's thought, Arrow, when making physical contact with a person, can hear any thought that person has ever had. The other 2 main vampires arrive, and that is Marcus and Caius. And Marcus immediately goes to Arrow and he touches Arrow's hand so Arrow can read his thoughts. And we learn that Marcus's power is sensing relationships. And so Arrow is laughing like a creeper, being like, that is so interesting. It seems you two have a very intense relationship. Pointing towards Edward and Bella. Arrow goes on saying, I don't understand how you can restrain yourself, Edward. Just thinking about her scent in your memories made me thirsty. And now in person? My goodness. Edward calmly says, not without effort. To which Arrow replies with, what a shame, what a waste. Edward laughs with no humor in his tone, saying, more like a price. Arrow, looking at Edward, says, I'm so curious, may I? And Edward sternly goes, ask her. This means that Arrow is wanting to try and read Bella's thoughts since he knows that Edward can. He's like, maybe I can, maybe I'll be different. And so he does ask Bella if she minds. Bella looks at Edward and Edward's like, to which Bella is now thinking like, is he saying that because it's safe or because we really have no option? And Arrow starts laughing like a madman yet again. The book literally goes, ha, ha, ha. This is crazy. I cannot hear your thoughts. That is so insane. I wonder if it's just mine and Edward's talent. I wonder. And he looks at Jane, and Edward is screaming, no, don't you dare. And he lunges forward, and then all of a sudden, Edward's on the ground. Jane is making direct eye contact with him, and he is on the ground, withering in pain. And Bella is screaming. She tries to go to Edward, and Alice grips her and is like, do not move. You're only gonna make it worse. Don't move. Jane has taken her eyes off of Edward and is making direct eye contact with Bella. And Bella is just like waiting for the pain, like bracing for impact. And nothing happens. That's what I imagined her face like this, and then one eye open being like, is it happening yet? Nothing. And Arrow laughs creepily again, like, this is insane! This is crazy! Oh my. And Jane hisses like a snake, and Arrow's like, calm down. Yours are not the only powers that she can avoid. Simmer down. This is good news. Arrow then turns to Edward and Alice and asks if they would like to join the Volturi. And then he looks at Bella and asks her the same thing. And Caius, who has been silent this whole time, is like, what are you talking about? And Arrow looks at him and he's like, brother, don't you see the potential here in this human? If we turn her and she cannot be controlled by any of our powers, imagine what gifts she could have as a vampire. And Bella just says, no thank you. And Arrow responds with, such a waste, and then he says something in Italian, which we will cover later. Caius is arguing with Arrow like the law claims them. They tried to expose us. And Edward argues with them, being like, there are a few humans down here who know about y'all as well. What's the difference? Caius does a very creepy smile and says, yes, but when they have no more use of us, they serve to sustain us. As in the Volturi will eat them. And Arrow says, unless, meaning we will have to follow by our own rules unless you grant her immortality. Edward says, and if I do, then you are all free to go home. No harm, no foul. And y'all know as well as I do that Edward does not want to change Bella. In fact, that is probably the #1 thing he doesn't want to do. And so Bella is staring at him. He's intensely staring at Bella and she's like, please. And Arrow notices this. He clocks that. And he's like, now this is very interesting. And before Arrow can question them, Alice steps forward and gives Arrow her hand, showing her what the future holds. While Arrow is watching this vision, Bella hears Edward clamp his teeth together. And she knows that she will become a vampire one day. She knows that that is what Edward is seeing through Arrow seeing Alice's vision. Confusing web, but yes, y'all get the gist. Arrow, for one final time, does his creepy laugh. He's like, wow, that is so fascinating to see what you can see. And Alice responds with yes, and this one is very, very determined. Arrow's like, yes, I can tell that that is what is going to end up happening. Lovely. Y'all are free to go. And once again, I'm going to bring up the movies because at this point in time, in the movie, she believes that Edward wants her again. They're going to be in a relationship. They have a few things to talk out, obviously, because he did leave her. But she knows that he still loves her. Whereas in the books, they haven't talked. So she's like, oh my gosh, would he much rather me die than become a vampire? Is that how little he cares about me? Because she doesn't know what's going through his head. Edward, Alice, and Bella are booking it out of the room because there are tourists that are entering where the Volturi are. And Bella's like, oh my God, those tourists don't know what's going their way. That's literally about to be their meal. And Edward is trying so hard to get her out of there, but he is too late because she knows what's going to happen. They are having to sit in the waiting room with Gianna until the sun goes down. The reason Gianna stays and works down there is because she hopes that one day they will let her join the Volturi. Bella hugs Edward and she's like, is it bad that I'm happy right now? And Edward responds with, I know what you mean, because we do have a lot of things to be happy for. One, you're alive. And with any luck, we will be alive tomorrow. Edward explains what Arrow said in Italian. And essentially Arrow said that Bella is a singer. Her blood sings to Edward. It calls to him, which we already knew. A lot of time has passed. It is now night. They are now free to leave. The St. Marcus Day party is still going on outside. Alice goes to try and find them a car. Bella and Edward just kind of hang out off to the side, away from people. And it doesn't take Alice long to find a car, but she's a little disappointed that it's not as fancy as the yellow one. And Edward's like, well, we can't all be finding cars like that, but you know what? Maybe I'll get you one for Christmas. And she just laughs and she's like, make sure it's in yellow. Make it to the airport and it's Edward and Bella sitting together and then Alice is behind them. And Edward keeps telling Bella, like, please just try and go to sleep. Just try and go to sleep. And Bella's like, I don't want to. What if I go to sleep and I have a nightmare? Like, I don't want to. I'm happy right now. I'm okay. Bella's thinking, like, maybe this is a good time for us to finally talk and get the answers that I don't want, but I know I'm going to need. And he kisses her forehead, her wrists, her cheek. He doesn't kiss her on the mouth. And she's thinking that's probably for the best because once he leaves again, if he kisses me like that, I won't be able to recover this time. Again, she still has the thought that he is going to leave as soon as they get back. She does fall asleep on the plane, and when the plane lands, there's actually a reception for them that she was not anticipating. There's a crowd waiting to pick them up from the airport, and the crowd is Jasper and Carlisle and Esme, and Alice and Jasper, they just run to each other immediately. And Carlisle and Esme like stay back a little bit, and then Esme like fully embraces Bella and is like, thank you for saving my son. Thank you. And then Esme looks at Edward and she's like, never do that to me ever again. When they go outside, Emmett and Rosalie are there, and Carlisle and Esme are like, y'all really need to talk. She's beating herself up over this, so we're gonna go ride with Jasper and Alice. Y'all are gonna go ride with Rosalie and Emmett. Rosalie starts talking to Edward, and Edward interrupts her like, I know. She then looks at Bella and says, I am so sorry, Bella. I didn't do it because I hate you or resent you or anything like that. I don't have an issue with you. I did it because I thought Edward deserved to know. I thought you really jumped. And I am so grateful that you were brave enough to go save my brother and bring him back to us. So please, please, please forgive me. And Bella is like, of course I forgive you. And she says it like that because she is so sleepy and jet lagged and mumbly that Emmett literally looks at Rosalie and is like, yeah, that apology doesn't count because she's barely conscious. You're gonna have to do that again later. They let her sleep in the car, and when they get to Bella's house, Edward has Bella in his arms, and we just hear Charlie screaming. He says, I can't believe you had the nerve to show your face around here. And then he looks at Bella, who is unconscious in Edward's arms because she's exhausted, and is like, what did you do to her? And Edward says, she is very tired. Please just let her rest. And Charlie says, don't tell me what to do with her. Get your hands off of her. Edward actually tries to listen to Charlie, but Bella grips on for dear life and is like, Charlie, leave him alone, please. Again, she's barely coherent. Like, she's not there. She's exhausted. They went to Italy and back in like the span of 2.5 days. Edward looks at Charlie and he's like, let me just bring her upstairs. I will leave as soon as I make sure she gets in bed. And Bella's like, what? And so Edward whispers in her ear so Charlie can't hear, like, I won't go far, like I will come back as soon as Charlie thinks I'm gone. When Edward finally gets Bella into her bed, she sleeps and sleeps and sleeps to the point where she thinks that she's been asleep for years. She is having nightmares where there are different kinds of monsters lurking around every single corner. And then there's also an angel. And the only thing clear in her nightmare / dream is that angel. And something cold touched Bella's forehead. And when this happened, she squeezed her eyes shut as tight as she possibly could. She's like, I don't want to wake up yet. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Because she truly doesn't believe that anything that happened in Italy actually occurred. But then she realizes, oh my God, wait, whatever that feeling is on my forehead, that's real. And so she opens her eyes and sure enough, Edward is there. I think right now I need to do some rearranging on our board for the last time in this video. I think that's what's gonna have to happen. As y'all can see, Edward is now here to stay. When Bella realizes, oh my gosh, Edward is here, she keeps thinking, oh my God, I drowned. I actually died, I drowned, I didn't survive. This is all a dream. And Edward's laughing like, no, you crazy person, I'm actually here right now. She's like, no, it can't be true. There's no way you're actually here. Bella then looks at Edward and goes, I can't believe I went to Italy. I've never been further than Albuquerque, and now I've been to Italy and back and I barely can remember it. And he tells her that she has been sleeping for 14 hours at this point. Remember, she's very, very jet lagged, and it's like 1 or 2 in the morning. So Charlie is definitely asleep right now. And Edward adds, and don't worry, I'm not breaking any of Charlie's rules because he said I'm not welcome through the front door. And I climbed in through the window, found a little loophole. And Bella says, oh my God, Charlie banned you? What am I gonna tell him? How long was I even gone for? Edward says that she was gone for 3 days. And he honestly has no clue what Bella should tell Charlie, but Edward just simply says, Alice will come up with something. He will believe Alice. Let's not worry about that. And Bella says, so what have you been up to minus the last 3 days? And Edward laughs saying, if I tell you, will you finally believe that this is not a dream and that you're actually alive? She nods her head and he says, I was hunting. Actually, I was tracking. I was trying to track for the first time. And then he quickly changes the subject and says, I owe you the biggest apology. I truly had no idea the mess I was leaving you in. I thought me leaving was better for you. I thought I was protecting you by doing that, but if anything, I just put you in more harm's way. And I promise I had no clue about Victoria. I would have come back immediately if I knew. Whenever the James ordeal happened, I was barely in her thoughts. I was just focusing on James, and I didn't realize that her and James had that type of attachment. And then you had to put your life in the hands of werewolves? He pauses, he stops, and then he continues on. Please just know that I had no clue, and I am sick to my core. I am just the most miserable, sorry excuse for... Bella holds up her hand and she's like, no, stop. Do not continue that sentence. You can't keep feeling this way. You can't have guilt over something that you didn't realize was going to happen. And when she says the word guilt, he in turn stops her and he goes, do you really think that I went to the Volturi just because I felt guilty for what happened to you? I can't exist in a world where you don't exist, Bella. I don't know how else to tell you this. And Bella's like, well, you told me you didn't want me. What was I supposed to believe? To which Edward responds with, I had to say that because that was the only way you would let me go. It was the only way you wouldn't try and follow me anywhere and everywhere. I didn't know I was that good of a liar for you to actually believe me. Never wanted to say that to you, but I needed to say something that would potentially have you move on with your life. And Bella says, a clean break. Exactly. And in that moment, I could see it in your eyes that you honestly believed that I never wanted you. Which is an absurd concept because I've told you countless times, I cannot live without you. I don't want to. Bella starts to cry and she says, I knew I was dreaming. I knew that I was dreaming. Edward shakes his head and says, you are so impossible. I love you. I will always love you. I never stopped loving you. And then he says, I will prove that you're awake. And he leans in to kiss her and she's like, no, 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 no. Please don't. No, no, no. Because I'm not going to be able to recover if you leave again after you kiss me. He then says, you were hesitant whenever I touched you yesterday. Does this mean that you've moved on? And it's completely fine if you have. I will cope, and you owe me nothing because of what I did and how I left you. But is it too late? And she says, what a dumb question. The way I feel about you will never change. And he says, well, that's all I needed to know. And then he kisses her. And let me just tell y'all, this is not as careful of a kiss as he normally does. This is them reuniting. Think of the scene in the movie when she first sees him outside the Volturi. That's kind of what's happening now. And they kiss until she starts to feel very, very dizzy. He backs away and he says, by the way, I'm never leaving you again. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not strong enough to leave you again. I struggled just to make it month by month, then week by week, then day by day. That is how close I was to coming back to Forks. Genuinely. If there had been about a week to 2 more weeks, he probably would have shown back up in Forks anyway, without the whole mess of the cliff diving, cliff jumping. At least that's what he's alluding to. And it alludes back to how the reason Alice agreed to leaving was because in her vision, she always saw Edward coming back to Bella. Edward tells Bella that while he was tracking during this time apart, he was actually tracking Victoria and he got sent on a wild goose chase to South America. And in reality, she went to Forks. So he was trying to find her. He just failed because he had a faulty lead. And Bella says, well, Jake's pack may have scared her off and we have bigger issues than Victoria right now. Yeah, you're right. The werewolves are a much bigger issue. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the other vampires that are gonna come to get me one day. And he just laughs and he says, I don't think you understand the concept of time for the Volturi. They could come tomorrow or they could come 100 years from now. So I don't think that there's any point in turning you. And Bella's like, what do you mean? No, like, you need to turn me. Edward says, no, I don't think I do. I think that you can live a long, healthy, happy life. And I will be there with you the whole way and you will just have a happy life. And she's like, no, I'm already 18. I'm already older than you in my human form. I don't want to be 70 years old and you're forever 17. And also you have no way of knowing if the Volturi are actually coming or not. And the reason Edward feels so confident that the Volturi is not going to come ASAP is because when they were in Italy, he was in each and every one of the Volturi's minds. And so he knows what they were thinking. Edward tells her, I can't be without you, but I'm not destroying your soul. Bella looks at him like he's crazy and says, you do realize I will die eventually and I will follow you as soon as I can. And Bella says, okay, you know what? We're leaving, let's go. And Edward is looking at her like she's crazy. And Bella just says, we're going to your house right now and we're putting it to a vote. Let's go. Bella is getting changed so they can go to the Cullen house. She says, oh, by the way, can I have my stuff back? Edward laughs at her. He kneels down and he lifts up one of the floorboards and he says, I didn't actually take it with me. It's been with you this whole time. And he pulls out all the pictures, the CDs, everything that Edward had given her at one point or anything that would have reminded her of Edward was in her room the entire time. Bella also explains to him that the reason that she would do all these dangerous activities is because that was the only way she could hear his voice. And Bella reflects saying, maybe the reason that I could hear it was because deep down in my subconscious, I knew that you still loved me and wanted me. Edward groaned, saying, you were risking your life just to hear me? And Bella's like, shh, don't speak when I'm having an epiphany. It wasn't the adrenaline rush. It was just because I knew you loved me. And he's like, well, duh, truly I do. And then he kisses her again. And now we are officially heading to the Cullen house. When we get to the Cullen house, Carlisle leads them into the dining room, and Bella thought that this dining room table was just for show, but in reality, this is actually where they make all of their family decisions. And Bella explains what is going on, explains everything with the Volturi, and she's like, you know what? We are putting it to a vote. Edward doesn't want me to be changed, but that is just one vote. I need each and every one of y'all's opinions right now. And Edward's like, no, wait a minute. Let me say my side real quick. Edward says, I don't think the Volturi is as dangerous as everyone is thinking that they are. It could literally be years until the Volturi come after us, and Alice can see them coming. And also the Volturi, one of their guards, is a tracker, but it's a different kind of tracker than James, because the way the tracker does his job is he is able to track people based on their mind and their thoughts. But since nobody's powers work on Bella's mind, he'll never be able to find them. And Bella interrupts him and goes, well, yeah, that's true. He won't be able to find me, but obviously you're going to be with me the whole time and he'll be able to use your thoughts. And Edward just shakes us off and he's like, well, we'll still have Alice to be able to see if they're coming. Emmett is like, yeah, bro, excellent plan. And Jasper joins in like, yes, I agree. And every girl at the table is like, you idiots, what? And that really cracks me up because that is like such a human and normal moment for them. I actually love that. Okay. Let's do our vote. She goes around the table one by one. We start with Alice. Yes. We go to Jasper. Yes. We go to Rosalie. No. She then pauses because Bella's like, and Rosalie says, it has nothing to do with you, Bella. I would not mind having you as my sister. I didn't get a say when I was becoming a vampire, and I wish I had someone there to vote no for me. That is why I am saying no in this moment. We will come back to this in Eclipse, but keep that in mind for now. Next we go to Emmett, and Emmett is like, heck yeah. Then Esme, who's like, I would be honored. Then finally, Carlisle. Carlisle looks at Edward before giving his final answer. Carlisle says, this is the only way it makes sense, and you refuse to live your life without her. And I refuse to lose my son. So yes. And at this moment in time, they hear an ear-splittingly loud crash happen from the other room, and Bella realizes Edward currently is not in the dining room. Like, what is he doing? He's throwing a little tantrum. And Stephanie Meyer answered the question on her website saying that the object Edward was smashing at this moment in time was a huge plasma TV. Bella shakes off this noise like, whatever, he will get over it. She then looks at Alice and she's like, when do you want to do this? And Alice is like, hold up, I told you, I don't think that I'm going to be able to change you. Edward comes storming into the room like, no way. Again, she's still ignoring Edward. She then moves to Carlisle and is like, okay, will you do it? Edward is still speaking, obviously, arguing with everyone. Carlisle ignores Edward this time and says, of course, I will do it. And Edward is like, oh my gosh, are we actually kidding? It doesn't have to be tonight. What about Charlie, Bella? I think it might be in everyone's best interest if we just wait until you graduate and then we can claim that we were just going off to college. Because if we do it now, you don't think that Charlie's going to send a patrol car straight to our house? And Carlisle, playing devil's advocate, is like, oh, yes, son, that is a great point. I do agree with that. And Bella simply says, I'll consider it. You can take me home now. He rushes Bella back home, and then he asks her, if you could have anything in the world, what would it be? With no hesitation, she says, you. And then she pauses because she knows that's not what he's asking her. And so then she says, I would have you be the one to change me. That's what I thought. Are you willing to trade 5 years? If you wait 5 years, I will change you. No way. 3 years. 6 months. 1 year is my limit. And then he says, you know what? Scratch that. If you want me to be the one to change you, I have a condition. Marry me. Marry me first. And this is not a joke. I'm serious. If you marry me, I will be the one to change you. And Bella's kind of flipping a lid and Edward laughs and he's like, settle down, settle down. It's 1 in the morning. We don't need to wake up Charlie. Are you trying to tell me right now that you are afraid of commitment? Bella says, I'm not afraid of commitment. I'm afraid of my mother. And then Bella asks, if I were to say, take me to Vegas right now, let's get married, would you change me in the next 3 days? Calling her bluff, Edward's like, I will pull the car around right now. And then she's like, fine, 18 months. I will give you 18 months. He's like, no. I'm actually set on this condition. Please marry me. Should I have gotten a ring first? Don't worry, that will get handled, but marry me. No, she shouts. And because she shouts and it's so early in the morning and Charlie is already on edge, of course he comes in to Bella's room. And Edward hides in the closet, by the way. And Charlie's like, you know you're in trouble, right? Like, we need to talk. I literally came home from the funeral and Jacob told me that you've gone off with the Cullens and that there was some kind of emergency and that he thinks that something's wrong or has happened to you. You didn't leave me with a phone number to call, nothing. And I didn't even know if you were coming back. So give me one good reason why I shouldn't ship you off to Jacksonville right now. And Bella says, cause I won't go. I'm 18 years old. I won't go. You can't make me. Where did you go? There is an emergency, a misunderstanding, if you will. She tells him that Alice's sister Rosalie told Edward about her jumping off of the cliff. She pauses because Charlie's face is like, cliff? What cliff? Because he had no clue that she did this. And so she's like, yeah, like I went cliff jumping, but it wasn't for any bad reason. I just went because it's for fun. It's recreational. It's what they do in La Push. But I had to go tell Edward what happened because he thought I actually jumped. I had to go explain the whole situation. And Charlie says, what's it to Edward anyway? He just left you dangling, hanging around without a single word. She shakes her head and goes, that was a misunderstanding. So he's back? I don't want you hanging around him anymore. He's rotten for you. Bella says, okay, I'll move out. Because Edward is a part of my life now and we are a package deal. Where I go, he goes. And you need to understand that. And Charlie and Bella are like, okay, we are over the ultimatums this early in the morning. Charlie leaves. Edward makes his way out of the closet. And Edward's like, honestly, I deserved far worse from Charlie. Would you really move into a house full of vampires? And Bella's like, well, it's probably the safest place for me if we're being completely honest. And you're gonna change me sooner than you think because I now know you don't believe that souls are truly destroyed. When I crashed into you in Italy, you literally said, oh my gosh, Carlisle was right. Meaning that there is hope in you all along. So let's be hopeful. Edward simply says, forever. And that's all I'm asking, Bella replies. And that is technically the end of New Moon, but there is an epilogue, so let's get into it. Everything was basically back to normal, except Charlie is still furious with Bella, and he's not talking to Edward. Sure, Edward is coming and going because Bella and him are a package deal now, but Charlie's not conversing, and also Bella has visitation hours for when Edward can come over, and she has a curfew because she's grounded, obviously. Bella wasn't talking to Jacob either. She didn't go to La Push. He didn't try to call her, nothing. Like she feels like she's completely lost her best friend. There would be days where she would try to call, but she would always do it whenever Edward would leave her house for a little bit before he'd come back for the night. But Jacob wouldn't answer them. And one day when Bella calls, Billy answers the phone and she's like, it's just so rude that he says Jacob doesn't even want to talk to me. Normally he makes up a lie or something, but no. He literally just said Jacob doesn't want to talk to me. And Edward's there and he says, it's not you, it's literally me. Jacob knows that me and my family are back and he won't come near you now. Well, that's dumb. Bella, I can control myself, but I don't think he can. He's young and would most likely pick a fight. And honestly, I don't want to have to hurt him because it would make you unhappy. Edward stops talking for a little bit and his gaze kind of goes towards their house and he does not look happy at all. And Bella follows his gaze and she sees a bright red motorcycle in her driveway and she also sees Charlie like, and Bella's like, why would Jacob do that to me? Oh my gosh, is he still here? I am so mad at him right now. And Edward's like, yeah, he's still here. He wants to talk to us. So they make their way into the woods and Bella's like, I think I'm gonna beat this boy up. Someone picture the Demi Lovato audio. That is how I imagined the scenario. And Edward's like, please take a breath. Charlie's gonna hear you. And he is very angry right now. So if you want to be able to talk to Jacob, you need to make sure Charlie doesn't see you or hear you. And Edward explains Jacob doesn't want to fight. He just wants to talk and see how long we are here for. He's actually just acting as a spokesperson for the pack. They walk further into the woods and sure enough, there is Jacob waiting for them. Jacob starts to say, Bella, but she interrupts him and she's like, why would you do that to me? And Jacob shrugs going, it's for the best. And Edward interrupts saying, well, that's not true. He did it because he knew that Charlie would be mad and ground you, which potentially would mean you wouldn't be able to hang out with me for a bit. Jacob is furious, being like, get out of my head. Edward looks at him and says, I just want to say thank you. I will never be able to tell you how grateful I am, and I will owe you for the rest of my existence. So thank you for keeping Bella safe when I couldn't. Jacob grunts and says, it wasn't for your benefit. Edward nods and goes, I'm aware, but I'm still grateful. And then he adds on saying, I'm here until she orders me away. Bella quickly adds, never. I'm never gonna do that. Jacob literally gags at that statement. Like, he gags. And he's like, I need you all to remember the treaty. If any one of them bites a human, the truce is over. Not kill, bites. Bella's like, oh, that's none of your business. And that is the exact moment that Bella realizes what Jacob just said was a precaution. He didn't say it because he actually believed that she was one day going to turn into a vampire. So Jacob is starting to have a little meltdown, starting to freak out a little bit, and Edward's like, Bella, take a few steps back. He's about to be out of control. Take a few steps back. And Jacob's like, shut up, get out of my head. I am fine, I am chill, I am composed. And then we hear Charlie shout, Bella Swan, get back in this house right now! Like, shouting. And before Bella and Edward officially leave the woods and Jacob behind, Edward says, do you guys have any word or update on Victoria? And Edward also adds, and if she comes back around, like, she's not your problem, she's my family's, we'll handle it. Jacob just tries to argue with Edward if we're being so for real, and Charlie keeps shouting, and so Bella's like, I gotta go. Jacob finally says to Bella, I tried to keep my promise to you, but I'm done trying now. Bella then tries to walk closer to him, and Edward's like, no, maybe not. Let's maybe not do that. And she looks at Edward and she's like, it's fine, I'm okay. Edward says, it's not fine. I don't think we should be walking closer to him. And Jacob is pissed, saying, let her go, let her go. The two of them, aka Edward and Jacob, are in their fighting stance. But before the two of them can actually fight and brawl over the love of each of their lives, Charlie shouts aggressively again, and Bella's like, I really gotta go, guys. And so they wrap it up and they head back to Bella's house. And by they, I mean Edward and Bella. Jacob is still standing in the woods. On the walk back to Bella's house, Bella is wrestling with a lot of thoughts right now. She's thinking of Victoria, the Volturi, her best friend that now lumps her in with his enemy. But Edward was here and she could face anything with him. So she walked towards her fate at her house with her destiny standing solidly beside her. That is the end of New Moon. Oh my, I feel like we've been talking for a while. I feel like me and you have been spending a lot of time together. I do have one final thing I need to add though, before we wrap it all up. I did not mention that the tribe that Jacob, his family, his pack are a part of, it is an actual tribe that is located in La Push. There's a very big controversy surrounding it, and I am going to put a lot of links in the description box down below so that you all can learn more about it, because the way that the author went about explaining their culture, their history, reworking everything wasn't the best at all. And also when all the movies and everything came out, they were actually not compensated for anything. And they got a lot of negative attention and attraction from this because all of their real history was twisted and fabricated into fictional work. And so they got a lot of unwanted attention from this. So I'm going to add a lot of things in the description box down below. Please check that out. I know I didn't talk about it too much in this video, but I will be talking about it a whole heck of a lot more in Eclipse and in Midnight Sun. But it is the Quileute tribe. They are in La Push. They are not actual werewolves, which apparently a lot of people thought that they were once the books and the movie came out. Like, literally tourists would come to the reservation and that would be the main question, like, where are all the werewolves? So yes. Anywho, that's actually the end of this video though, so thank you all so much for watching. If you made it to the very end, either drop a vampire emoji in the comments or a werewolf emoji in the comments. That way we can tell who the real ones are. Eclipse is coming so soon. So soon. And thank y'all for being here. I appreciate it. I will see y'all later. Bye everyone.